Hello, 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 folks. We're going to get started here in about 2 minutes. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Rascal. Hope you're having a good day today. How was everybody's weekend? I think my dog knows when what I always say when I start a stream because as soon as I said hello, he just jumped right up on the couch and laid down. He's just like, "All right, we're in this for the long haul." So funny what they know. All right, 1 minute countdown, folks. Go ahead, get a glass of water, glass of tea, whatever you like to drink, um, and pet your dog. And today we're going to learn about Tailwind. I am going to go grab my tea, which I left over on the other table, so I'll be right back. Yeah, exactly, Rascal. The dog, yeah, he's very smart. He knows when I end Teams calls for work, like he knows when I say bye that there's a chance that he might get to go outside, so he goes to the door, and yeah, he's very smart. All righty. Welcome, welcome, everybody. The timer has counted down. We are at the top of the hour. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, folks. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Um, so today we're going to do something a little different. Um, hey, Sewon. That's awesome. You're doing Tailwind right now. Yeah. Hi, Kasava. I figured as, folks are starting to build, client projects or even starting to get interviews and doing their, maybe even starting their new job. Um, I think that it's worth, Tailwind is something that's worth knowing about. It's still great to obviously learn CSS fundamentals first. But I think Tailwind could be a huge help to folks who maybe struggle with CSS a little bit, like I do. But I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not good with styling, and so any tools that can help with styling without removing all the creativity out of it, I think can be a really good thing. So, Adarinto, welcome. Hello. Hey, Jazzy Pants. I'm glad you love Tailwind. That's awesome. Madeline, hey, welcome. Yeah, and then that's it. That's a fantastic point, Jazzy Pants. That's exactly what I want to convey with this lesson today is that with Tailwind, you really can't use it effectively and well if you don't first understand the basics of CSS. And I even have a meme for this, so don't let me forget to share the meme, but it was just perfect. Um, yeah, and so you basically the ideal progression, which I think a lot of us have done if you're in 100 devs, is that you learn the basics of CSS styling first, right? So just learn how to, build it the manual way first, learn what the words mean and, what margins are, what padding are, and, font weights and everything. And then you can use additional tools and frameworks like Tailwind to just make that styling a little faster while still using the same concepts that you've already learned. Hey, Dev Limiter, welcome. Hey, Honda Civic, Sunday Fun Day indeed. Yeah, this should be fun. Nothing too strenuous, just sort of introducing us to Tailwind. Um, I even, because I'm a nice person, I even have a sort of a starting point, a starting repo for y'all. So we'll get to that in a minute. Uh, hey, drunk Uncle Grandma, what do you prefer to use, Bootstrap or Tailwind? Is it situational? So, yeah, I mean, Bootstrap is a little older and it definitely has like a look, right? If I see a website that's been made in Bootstrap, I can usually tell. It's just got the buttons have a certain look, and it has because it has all these built-in styles, right? And you can kind of tell when something was a Bootstrap site. which not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you want a little bit more creativity and essentially just want to be able to do everything that you can do in CSS, but kind of have it auto generate that CSS for you, then Tailwind can allow a little bit more creativity, more flexibility. Tailwind has access to animations and all sorts of extra things that you can do. And even some like pre-built components that look amazing and look very modern. So yeah. What are we making? Well, yeah, I'll show you all that in just a minute. I'm just waiting for folks to kind of trickle in here. But some great questions so far. Hey, Paradise. I'm glad you could make this stream as well. It looks bootstrappy. Yeah, it just kind of bootstrap sites just kind of have a look. You can usually tell by like the buttons, the colors that the buttons are. Yeah, they just, and not that that's a bad thing, right? I feel like for internal sites and for like utility sites, Bootstrap is perfectly fine. It makes things very readable. You can kind of like it gives your brain some visual cues with like how things look, since they all look very similar. Your brain has some like visual cues and be like, oh, yep, that's the button I need to click. Like that's a cancel button. It's red. Boom, got it. So that could be an advantage depending on what you're trying to build, right? Sometimes you want people to just know visually, maybe even if they can't read, you would want them to know which button to click, right? So that could be a good thing to use Bootstrap for. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you with Tailwind, you do have to build things yourself, right? You have to apply your own styling, but Tailwind does hold your hand, and we'll see how that works as well. Woo! Thank you, Cranberry. Thank you for the gifted subs. I really appreciate it. How's the job going, Cranberry? You still doing good? If you just got a gifted sub from Cranberry, please give them a thank you and try out your new emotes. Yeah, and also Honda Civic brings up a great point. The Tailwind documentation is really, really good. And we'll probably get the chance to explore that documentation a little bit because I will forget what some of these styling terms are. And so we'll get the chance to look them up in the documentation. Good, Cranberry. I'm glad it's going well. That's great. Thank you. Oh, and I see a sub alert that says Beveletto just subscribed. Thank you for the sub, Beveletto. I don't see you in my sub alerts, but looks like you did. Oh, I see that was a gifted sub. Okay. Well, thank you anyway. Thanks again, Cranberry Cat. All right. Hope Oreo is doing well. I'm sure she is. Yeah. I haven't heard yet whether she got adopted, but I'm sure she did. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm sure more folks will come in here. They usually do trickle in as the stream goes on. So let's go ahead and get started here. I think my camera's a little out of alignment. I don't know what happened there, but I'm a little off kilter. All right. So, first off, let's take a look at essentially what we're going to be trying to build today. And then we'll kind of look a little bit at what Tailwind is, and kind of some of the advantages of like what it can do, what it is. And then, like I said before, I have a template for you guys to start with. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that template, then explore the various parts of the template, like see, all right, what do I have to do if I want to make Tailwind work with my site? So we're going to go through each piece of that template, and then we're going to essentially style that template. So we're going to take the HTML, we're going to style it up with Tailwind, and we're going to see in real time what that styling looks like. Yeah. All right, so let me switch here to my screen. Let me just scooch something around here. All right, so this is essentially what we're going to be building. And it's really very simple. This is just a single page kind of static template that we're going to be building, but it's got a lot of really useful components in it. And it's got, you can see up here, it's got a nice nav bar. It's got a nice, title. We've got some various, subheaders in here. We've kind of got like our hero bar up, this whole white area up top here. Nice hero bar. We've got down below, we've got sections with, colors and custom colors. We've got, these are all links down here and they do stuff when you hover over them. We've got a section here with various headings and differently styled links. And we've got, let me make this a little, there we go, so you can see it. And we've got a newsletter kind of a toolbar down here with a subscribe button. And we've got a copyright bar down at the bottom. Now you notice this is ascribed to someone called Template Raven, and I do want to give them credit. They did the styling for this. We're just going to be basically mimicking the styling on this template. It just has a lot of nice features it's a fairly simple template with a lot of nice features, and it'll be good for us to mimic these styles. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that when I changed the size of the window, it was very responsive. So we do this, I make it a little smaller. Oop, responsive. Hey, oh, look at that. And when I get it down to about like mobile size right here, what do we have? We have a hamburger menu. Hello. We have a hamburger menu with a little bit of animation. Isn't that nice? Yes, lovely, lovely. And so, here you could link to additional pages or whatever. Um, and so it's extremely responsive, very slick, looks very modern and clean. So we're going to be mimicking this styling ourselves today, starting with my starter template, which currently has no styling, but it has all the framework to make Tailwind work. So this is what we're going to be building. And I do want to credit the creator of this, Abraham Ebijuni. They are Abraham Ebij on GitHub. So I pasted that's their name. I just pasted it in chat if you want to, give them a star or what have you. But we're going to be, styling this basically from scratch, not using their code specifically, but mimicking their styles. So, okay. So yeah, that's what we're going to be building, and it's pretty cool. Minimize that for now. Let me just catch up with chat. Yeah, cool effects. Yeah, it looks really nice, doesn't it? Yeah, it's very clean. Saywan, so that's what I did for my project. I had the hamburger menu. I think you have to do the if else for that. Not necessarily. We're going to see a different way to do it. And I'm not saying, any of them or any way to do a hamburger menu is bad. If it works, then it works, right? But you might see a slightly different way to do that today. And yeah, and Jazzy Pants says you can even import your own animations by editing the Tailwind config file, and we're gonna do that. That little hamburger animation that I showed you, that's a custom animation, and so I'm gonna show you how to bring in custom scripts to do your own animation. And so yeah, you can use built-in animations with Tailwind or do your own. Yeah, it's pretty rad. And yeah, and Tailwind also makes media queries really easy. So we'll see that. So one of the things that I struggle with a lot in base CSS is doing media queries, because first you code out all your CSS for like whatever screen size is your standard screen size, and then down at the bottom you got to do the whole dang thing again, right? In your CSS you got to do the whole dang thing for every screen size. You say, all right, at whatever, and set your screen size, and then do all your custom CSS there, and then set another screen size and do more CSS, and another screen size and do more CSS, blah, blah, blah. And for me, it's really hard to keep all that straight. But again, Tailwind makes it easy. So, all right. And as Darknet says, I find Tailwind messy. And you might. This might not be the tool for you. But what I want to emphasize is that it's all about the right tool for the right job, right? For those of us that struggle with base CSS, Tailwind might be your answer. It might not be. You might always just say Bootstrap is good for me, or some other framework, whatever. But there's a lot of different ways to do this, and this is just one of them. Okay, so what is Tailwind? So this is the Tailwind site here. And it basically does what it says here. You can rapidly build websites without leaving your HTML. So essentially what you do is you add your class names to your HTML components, and you add these class names, which tell Tailwind that you want to do a certain type of styling, right? So you could say like, text left or something like that. And that would signal to Tailwind, all right, I want to align text left. And so once you've done your styling, you can just say, all right, Tailwind, build this for me. And Tailwind will then generate CSS for you. So you still get a CSS file. It's not like inline styling. This is a little different than inline styling. But you declare all these class names. Tailwind scans for any component names that you've added, and then outputs CSS in a CSS file that then works just like regular CSS. So yeah, it's pretty rad, and I would highly suggest checking out their website at tailwindcss.com to see some examples of what you can do. They have a lot of great examples of different types of sites you can build. Um, and they give you the real code over here. And so you can see like, all right, how did they actually do this? How to do this kind of styling. So um, and then another nice thing about it is that when you build for production, Tailwind can remove all of your unused CSS. So it'll only give you the CSS that's actually working, that's actually being used for something in your project, which is pretty nice. And it also makes it easy to be responsive, as we saw in the example that I showed. Responsiveness is easy to achieve here because what you can do, instead of setting up separate media queries, instead of setting up separate media queries for each screen size, you can essentially just say small, medium, large, and then set the behavior within the HTML component, or the HTML tag itself. Say, all right, when this is small, I want it to do this. When it's medium, I want it to do this. When it's large, I want it to do this. And it's all within that HTML class, so you never lose track of what you're doing for each size. Jason says, I was watching one of your VODs and I got a gifted sub. Let's go. Nice. That's awesome. All right. Yeah, and what you can do is so somebody else, um, how can you avoid, this long, super long list of classes? There's even a way to do that. And we're going to see a simple example of that in the template we're building today. We're going to see a very simple example of using @apply to essentially create almost like a, what you call it? A partial, kind of like a partial where, you can encapsulate a chunk of code and reapply it over and over as many times as you need to. So for example, if you had a button that you had always was always 25 pixels tall, 50 pixels wide, um, green with rounded corners and no outline, you could save that as a particular button type and just apply it as a single word class in your HTML. Yeah, we'll see a simple example of that. Okay, so again, I would highly suggest checking out their website, and I'm sure we will at some point here because I'll forget what something means, and then we'll have to check it out in the docs. So that'll be good. But last word of caution that I wanted to share, that I did want to share, was this particular meme of which I think fits pretty well. Junior dev who skipped CSS fundamentals. I'm nothing without Tailwind. And the senior dev says, if you're nothing without Tailwind, then you shouldn't use it, right? You should know your CSS fundamentals first and then use Tailwind to make things easier. So again, word of caution, know your CSS fundamentals, then start using Tailwind. All right. Memes aside, let's go ahead and get started. Well, hey, Honda Civic, I feel like we know the basics of CSS, right? If you're in 100 devs at any point, you know the basics of CSS enough to start using Tailwind. All right. So what are we doing to start with here? I want to give you a template, which we are going to use in order to kind of all be on the same page without having to hook up a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to give the link to the template in chat. Hello, welcome to the Stream Artifice. So today we're not talking about SQL, but if you want to learn more about SQL, SQL Bolt is a good resource online for that. Also, if you would like me to give you an introduction to SQL, I do have a stream on that. If you do exclamation point YouTube in chat, do the just exclamation point YouTube. That will give you a link to my channel. And you'll find a YouTube video on my channel of a past stream where I did a comprehensive introduction to SQL. And we go through some exercises where you can try SQL yourself, try some queries, and learn more about what it is and see if it works for you. Yeah, check it out. In college, all I had was floats and cried every day. Oh, man, that's rough. Thank you for the follow, Darknet. Okay, so here's the repo. Let me dump it in chat here. And once more, I think I already did, but I'm going to spam it a couple times for you. There you go. This is the repo that we are starting with. And I'll move it over a little bit so you can see it. Very simple. I would suggest just cloning it down in VS Code. And then we'll go through kind of essentially all the components of this. And then we'll see how to get it running, and then we'll style it. Okay? Any questions before we get started? I'm going to close my extra tabs here so I don't get confused. All right. Not seeing any questions. So I have the template over here on the left. I'm going to make this bigger so you can actually see it. Can everybody see that okay? I'm going to kind of close the folders up here. That look good? Just want to make sure folks can see. Good? Okay. All right. So this is how it should look when you first open it. And I'll give folks a minute to clone it down. Just let me know when you're ready to go. So again, this is the repo that we're cloning. And I'll give folks a minute to get it cloned into VS Code. So just let me know when you're ready. And if you don't know how to clone down a repo, all you need to do is just you can just open up a new VS Code window and say clone git repository, and then just enter the repository name. And then after you do that, it'll ask you where you want to save it. You just pick where you want to save it, and then it'll say, do you want to open this? And you're like, yes, and then you can open it. Okay? All right. I'm seeing that Madeline is ready. Yeah, and don't forget to CD into the folder if you need to. Yeah. My biggest mistake that I've made 100 times. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever actually had that problem. When I use git bash, it seems to automatically put me into the right folder, but I could see that, depends on what you're using for your terminal, that could mess you up a little bit there. All right, I'm going to assume that folks are ready to go. Let me know if you have any questions on getting that repo cloned down. So let's start going through it. First thing I want to look at is just our package.json. Whoops, package.json. Let's see what's in there. All right, so you'll notice, let's look at our dependencies first. Notice that we are using TailwindCSS. And this is our only dependency. So I've noticed that in some Tailwind tutorials, they have you installing like a bunch of stuff just to use Tailwind. And if you're just building a static site like this, that's not necessary. You can use Tailwind, just Tailwind CSS. All right. Yeah, like there's a bunch of add-ins that you could use, right? There's a bunch of add-ons and stuff like that. But if we want to just learn about Tailwind itself, you don't gotta make it like complicated. You can just use it. And then once you know how to use it, you can start customizing things a bit more. All right, so just Tailwind CSS. And then you'll notice that we do have a script up here, which I will go into, but let's look at some of the other components first. Hey, Mavi, welcome. All right, so package.json, all we've done is we have Tailwind CSS on board. Now let's look at what we have in our public folder. So go ahead and maximize the public folder. And in here, you can see that we've got some CSS, JavaScript, and pages. And then we have index.html. So first off, let's look at the CSS folder inside of the public folder. So in here, we have two things. We have output.css and styles.css. So styles.css is basically like the kind of CSS that we would normally make, right? Very manual. You can code your own styles and that kind of thing with a regular old CSS. And the nice thing about Tailwind is that if you want to, you can still do that, right? You can still use Tailwind and then code custom stuff on top of it in just a regular old CSS folder. And that's what this person has done here in order to make the hamburger bar animated. And so we'll see how that works, in a little bit. But I just wanted to illustrate that you can still use your own custom CSS on top of Tailwind styles themselves. And now here in output.css, this is what Tailwind outputs. And if we just look at this file, we can see it's got a lot going on. Imagine trying to code this all out yourself, right? That would suck. Now there's ways to make this smaller, but I just left it as you know, as the full CSS file just to kind of show you what it's in here, what's in here. Yeah. So all this stuff that you don't have to do yourself, Tailwind will just do it for you. Now notice that this file name is output.css. Hey, Akechi Griffith, good to see you. Easy reading. Yeah. Yep. So notice that this file name is output.css. So that implies that there must be an input, right? So it's the fact that this is output, there must be an input. And you might recall that I mentioned earlier that what Tailwind does is that it essentially um, takes in the styles that you want to apply, right? And then it outputs the generated CSS that's actually being used when the page like renders in the browser, right? So we will have an input file elsewhere, but this output.css is what the browser actually uses to build the styles when it renders the page. So we have our output.css, we have our styles.css, which is all hand-coded custom stuff. And then we can also, as I mentioned earlier, we can also use some scripts to control behavior as well. Just like we would with a normal app, we can have scripts. And so here we do. What this is doing is it's just controlling the behavior of the nav bar. So that hamburger menu that I showed you earlier, it's just saying, all right, when it's, when the hamburger menu is visible, then hide the links, and you click on it, and you get the drop down menu with the links. And so this is a way that you can do hamburger menus. Somebody mentioned earlier you can do if else, and you absolutely can. What's actually happening here is it's adding and removing a hidden class name. So when it's hidden, it hides. When it's not hidden, it's visible, right? So pretty simple. We're not going to really get into this because that's not the point of this particular stream, but just know that this is here and you can use it to build your own, hamburger menu nav bar thing if you would like to. Yeah. And we also have a folder here for pages. Now there's nothing in here right now, but this is where you could add additional pages to this template if you wanted to. So we're just going to build a single page template today. But what you could do is, add multiple different pages, link to those pages. And the nice thing is that as long as you, link to the style sheet properly, and you can, use all the Tailwind styles on these pages as well. And then finally, we have our index.html. And right now, this is just plain HTML. I've deliberately not included any classes because we're going to go through all these and we're going to style it to mimic the look that we saw earlier. Okay. And then last here, we have a source folder. And this is where that input CSS is located. So, RJ, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Wow, I really appreciate it. And RJ used their Prime sub, which means it didn't cost them any money, and all it did was cost Jeff Bezos money, which I think we can all appreciate. Yeah. The goal of this channel is to stop Jeff Bezos from going to space again so quickly, and maybe having to sell his cowboy hat. So we're getting there. I feel like with all the Prime subs, we're definitely on our way. Thank you again, RJ. Okay, so this is our input CSS. Now you'll notice in here, it looks a little weird, right? Doesn't look like a normal CSS file. We see we've got all these Tailwind base components, utilities, and it's kind of got the squiggly underline. VS Code isn't sure about it. And then here we've got this thing at layer components, links active. What the heck is this? So let's look at this a little bit. And we're going to spend just a little bit of time on this file. So remember, I said that, Tailwind takes in inputs based on what we want to style and then outputs CSS. And in order to do that, essentially this is giving Tailwind some basic guidance on what we're going to be needing for this particular site. And so in general, when you're creating a new Tailwind project, you're just going to create a CSS file, input.css, whatever. Then you're going to paste in these 3 lines: Tailwind base, Tailwind components, Tailwind utilities. And this just gives the very basic stuff that Tailwind needs to generate the output CSS. D5 says, how do you sub with Prime? It should be an option if you click the sub button. It should give you the option like toward the bottom. There should be like a checkbox on the, you click the sub button, and then toward the bottom of the sub menu, there should be a little checkbox that says something like sub with Prime. And then that allows you to use your Prime sub instead of having to pay for anything. So thank you for the follow, Sleepy Bookworm. All right, so these 3 lines are essentially the basics of what you need, and you don't have to add anything else. What we've done here is something that Jazzy Pants mentioned earlier, where we can add, if we know something that is going to be applied multiple times. So for example, I mentioned earlier, what if you have a button, right? And you have a lot of buttons on your site, and you know that they're all going to be, you want them to all be styled the same, so they all look the same. For example, say like green, bold black text, rounded corners, no outline, and like a drop shadow or something. I don't know. You could create essentially like a template for those buttons using this @apply keyword here, @apply. And so you'll notice that what this is doing is it's saying, all right, for any links that have a class of active, go ahead and just do this every single time. So as soon as I add the class of active to a link, it will automatically apply gray text styling to that particular link, to that particular active link. So it's just like almost like a macro, right? It's almost like a macro where it just does this action automatically when you use a certain keyword. Yeah. This is wonderful. I'm glad. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And we're just barely scratching the surface today. There's so much to talk about with Tailwind, so much that it can do, but we are just going to be barely scratching the surface. So I do hope that folks will explore this more after I just get you started, right? I'm just going to get you working. I'm going to get you up and running, and then you can do whatever the heck you want from there. Yeah, exactly. So this is essentially how you'll do it most of the time. You'll just say, all right, @layer components, and then these are the things that you want to happen all the time. And so in this case, we've got this, where it just says, all right, before every element, you essentially want to just have a block display, and it's just putting a little extra space between the elements. And then also for any active links, just whenever I add this active class to a link, just automatically give that gray text color, right? Yeah, and Mavi has shared an example of something they built in Tailwind. Absolutely, check that out. And you can make it look, unique to you, right? Whatever styling you want. All right, so this is our input. So we've done this, and then basically what we do after that is, as soon as we compile this with Tailwind, Tailwind will go through, it will build out our CSS, taking, keeping in mind these specific things that we have specified, and then generate our output CSS file. But in order for us to do that, we need to configure Tailwind. So it's looking for components in the right places. It knows, where basically just, we need to just basically tell Tailwind, hey, this is where I have, added some components. This is where you should look for stuff, Tailwind, in order to build the output CSS. So in order to do that, all we need to do is literally create a file called tailwind.config.js. So you need your input CSS with at the very least, these 3 lines, and then you'll need a file called tailwind.config.js. And you'll need to create that. That doesn't happen automatically. But it will pretty much always have the same format. Thank you for the follow, safe data scientist. All right, so let's look at tailwind.config.js. And you can see here that what we're doing is essentially just exporting a module. And we've done that a lot, right? We've done a bunch of module exports. That's not unusual. So we're just we're creating a module and we're exporting it. And this module really just needs to have 3 basic properties, I guess, key value pairs: contents, themes, and plugins. And as you can see here, they don't necessarily have to be filled in, right? We don't have anything in plugins and nothing will get read, so we can just leave it empty. But we do have entries in content and theme. And Keith Nicholas coming in to chat, dropping the knowledge bombs, saying npx Tailwind CSS init will create the config.js for you. Yeah, so you don't even got to do that. Thank you, Keith. Coming in hot with that first time chat. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, so as Keith said, or you could just do npx Tailwind CSS init. And then you probably will have to do a little bit of configuration once you do create that file, but that will create the file for you. So yeah, the first time, man, I gotta say, I love my first time chatters because they just like, they're just lurking until they can just drop a knowledge bomb, and they always come in with like these crazy hot knowledge bombs, and it's great. I love it. I love my first time chatters. Yeah, exactly. So you can use that command that Keith shared, npx Tailwind CSS init, in order to, create the config file. But after that, you still have to tell Tailwind where to find the work that you've done, right? So after you've done all your styling, you still need to tell Tailwind, all right, this is where my stuff lives. This is where you should look for it in order to generate the output CSS. So what we've done here is essentially not really best practice. This is, we're baddies writing bad code. And so that's what we've done here. Essentially, I did this because I was I was trying to figure out my structure for this, and I was moving files around all the time, and I didn't want to keep changing the path in here. So I made it really generic. But what this is essentially doing is it's saying, hey, Tailwind, look for anything that's either HTML or JavaScript in like my entire project structure. So it at all levels, just look for anything that's HTML or JavaScript, scan for any components, any Tailwind components in there. Like basically, as soon as you say, text bold or font weight, whatever, and start adding Tailwind styles, you want to make sure that Tailwind picks that up when it compiles your CSS. So we just tell Tailwind, all right, this is where this stuff lives. This is where you should scan for it when you build. And then output it. However, if you were building for like production, you would really probably want to be very specific about the paths for each page, or like the specific, if you have all your pages in a folder, you would just want to direct Tailwind to that particular folder. You'd want to be better. You want to be better than this. um, yeah, and exactly. You can change. That's a great point, Rascal. So let's say you're using, I don't know, handlebars, which is a .hbs file, or EJS, which is .ejs. You would just change this extension from HTML to EJS, or you know HBS, or your view engine of choice, right? We're just working with plain old HTML today. However, one of the things I was thinking about was making this a full stack app. And so then that would, require changing this extension to be HBS or EJS or whatever we decide to use. So, yep, you can change the extension. You're basically just telling Tailwind, these are the places where I have used Tailwind styling components. And so this is where Tailwind should look. And now what we're doing here, essentially, if you're not familiar, is we're using wildcards. And so anybody who's familiar with doing like custom searches or SQL queries probably knows what wildcards are. But who can explain succinctly what a wildcard is in chat? I feel like I haven't asked you all enough questions yet. I normally ask a lot of questions in chat, so I made it too easy on you today. So what's a wildcard? If I use a wild card in a search, what does it do? And another first time chatter. Nice. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, as Jazzy Pants and Age Monkey said, yeah, it's basically, yeah, I love that, RJ. I love that. Yeah, it's a way to say any input will do, or find anything that matches at this level. And as RJ said, it's similar to the Joker. Yes, that is what the asterisk is called. Yep. When you're talking about like searching or queries, you can refer to it. It's generally referred to as a wildcard. Um, yeah. So does this only apply to Tailwind, or is that general? I've heard it applied elsewhere. Yeah. Um, like in, for example, like in a SQL query, if you just want to get everything out of a table, you would literally do like select and then an asterisk from table. That would get you everything out of that table. Um, yeah. And in SQL, it's generally called select star, but you'll find it referred to as different ways in different ways. Yeah. How come there are multiple asterisks and a backslash? Yeah. So CSS and okay, and it's, yeah, everybody seems to have a different name for it, right? In CSS, it's the universal selector, which sounds very cosmic. Universal, it's like Galactus or something. The Galactus, the universal selector. Yeah. Um, so what this is essentially doing is it's saying, all right, it's look for everything at the particular folder level, right? So we do have a structure here, and so it's essentially just look in all folders at each level, and drill down to the appropriate, like drill down through the folder structure and get everything at each level. So the backslashes are basically delimiting the level that we're at in the folder structure. And you can find a lot of references on how to do it. But this is very similar to kind of how you would say like link to a script in your HTML file, or link to CSS. In your HTML file, you would still have to delimit your structure, even if you're just using the dot dot thing. So do you have to be that specific? Actually, it's better the more specific you can be. Um, so if you can, like I said, this is not good practice. What I've done here, what Tailwind recommends is that you drill down and be as specific as possible to get to your pages that you're targeting, or whatever folder you're targeting. You should specify that, like actually specify that. So not good practice, but it works. As far as the double asterisks, I don't remember. Let's see. So in the Tailwind documentation, let's just peek there right quick. I don't, because yeah, I don't remember the answer to that question. Good question though. Um, so we can search here and say content basic usage. Let's see. Customization. Configure content sources. I think that'll be it. Yeah. All right. So there is a page for that in the documentation. Yes, of course. Rascal has given us the answer, but I do still want to briefly look at this. So it does explain how to use, how to configure your content sources. And there's some new documentation for that. So let's just peek at that real quick. All right, here we go. So here it actually tells us. So use a single star to match anything except slashes and hidden files, and use star star to match 0 or more directories. Okay. So since we're looking in directories here, we're looking at folders, then star star is what we want there. So like I said, the documentation is really good. So whatever you want to find, you can probably find it. That's why I like Tailwind, because it actually has good docs. Yeah, and like I said, Madeline, sorry, that's what like I said, Zena, you should write it, just direct to your, like, put your pages in a folder and then direct Tailwind to that folder. Don't do what I did. All right, so that's the content section here. Now let's look at theme. So in theme, we've created an object here called screens, and we've defined one screen, and we've said extra small is 361 pixels. And so you know how for media queries, you often have to say, like, you specify like specific screen widths and the behavior you want at each width. Well, you kind of do that same thing for Tailwind as well. So here we've just basically said anytime I apply extra small to a class, that's meaning this behavior should occur for screens, 361 pixels or smaller. However, you'll notice that I don't have to spell out every single screen size, right? I don't have to go like, okay, extra small is 361, small is like 500, medium is, I don't know, 650, etc. Instead, what we've done here is use the spread operator and said default theme dot screens, because Tailwind has a default theme and you can use components from that default theme in your project without having to, use everything. You can use whatever you need. And so here we're just bringing in that default theme and saying, all right, just get all the screen sizes and just use those, without having to code it out, without having to write it out. Just use those. It's like Bootstrap for teamwork. Yeah, 2.8, and I could probably refine these wildcards a little bit more. I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I did these searches a little bit more. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but it works. So I do. If I were to refine this, I would get rid of all these open-ended searches, and I would just direct to the places where I actually have my content. I wouldn't do this. So bad practice. But thank you. Yes, I'm sure you're right, 2.8. Yeah, and like any tool, it's not for everyone, but there's some things like this where you don't have to manually code out all those screen sizes. You can just be like, all right, Tailwind, I know you got a list of screens in here. Use the spreader operator, just dump out all those screens. And this way, we'll see this. We're going to use these different screen sizes. We're just going to code out our behavior for all these different screen sizes within our HTML, and it's going to be so much easier to follow than using traditional media queries, because we can literally just say, all right, extra small screen, do this, medium screen, do this, large screen, do this, and it's all going to be next to each other and together. Darknet says, "All right, I'm starting a project after midterms to just learn Tailwind." Well, if you stick with me today, we're going to be doing that, right? You can actually try it out and see if it works for you. And it may not, and that's okay. All right, and the next thing we have here is an extend object, and here we have an object inside of that that says colors. And what we've done here is declare a primary color. And so what this does is it can basically set like a theme color for your site, right? So you might want a certain color, like let's say you're building a site for a brand, like a corporation, and they have a brand book, which is going to have, all right, these are our main colors. This is like our second, we have a primary. Usually they'll have a primary color and a secondary color in their brand book, or maybe a bunch of other secondary colors, but they'll have at least one primary color that everything, all their branding has to adhere to. And so what you can do is you can set that primary color in the config, and then in your styling, all you got to do is just say primary color. When you're trying to set like a text color or a button color or whatever, you can just say primary color, and it will automatically set to whatever that color is. And so that way you never run the risk of deviating from the brand book accidentally, because you're building 16 pages in your site, and you get it wrong, you get the hex code wrong one time and it screws everything up. So TOS, my 2 full stack web apps so far just use vanilla 100 dev setting with EJS. What CSS framework would you recommend upgrading to? Well, it depends on what you're building, TO codes. I mean, Bootstrap is great because it has a lot of stuff built in. You can just say, all right, button info, and you're going to get a blue button that has certain behavior, right? Tailwind, which we're going to look at, we're going to kind of see the capability of that in a minute. Tailwind allows you to be very creative and flexible. And there might be a little bit more styling and finagling involved, but also you get, the nice thing about Tailwind is that you actually get a CSS file generated, so you can see it and make tweaks if you need to. And then React is good because allows you to compartmentalize your site, right? With React, if you have a lot of components on your page that are constantly going to be updated, instead of reloading the page every single time, you can use React and have those components individually refresh themselves without your whole page reloading every single time somebody makes a change, which could be disruptive and annoying and resource intensive for your users. So, and you can mix and match too, one tool might not be the best thing for every project. Yeah, React is great. It's a little bit harder. It's got a higher barrier to entry, right? But if you're interested in React TO codes, Rascal 2, right here in chat, Rascal 2 has been reactifying 100 devs projects for weeks now. So they're taking like non-React projects, ones using EJS and that sort of thing, and converting them into React projects. So if that's something you might be interested in, I would highly suggest checking out Rascal 2's channel, and they can kind of give you an idea of how to do that effectively. Yeah, check out Rascal 2. I'll give them a quick shout out here. That's why I haven't really been doing that on my channel, because I want people to go to Rascal's channel. Shout out. Yeah, React with Rascal. Rascal 2. All right, let's see if that works. There you go. I've just given you a direct link to Rascal's channel. If you want to take your older projects or your other projects and convert them from not React to React, that's your channel right there. Okay, good question. All right, so really quick, back to this. Let's just do a quick recap. Yes, and Rascals even shared a direct link to the playlist with all of those videos on YouTube. So you don't even got to finagle with Twitch, get throwing ads at your face. Just watch it on YouTube with Rascal. So there you go. There's a direct link to the playlist. You got no excuse. Go do it. Not right now. Keep watching my stream, but afterwards, go check out Rascal's playlist. All right. So let's do a quick recap of what was in here. So first, we told Tailwind where to find the things that we are styling, right? The places where we're using Tailwind components, we need to tell Tailwind where to find them. And then we set up a theme. We set up a couple of different themes. So those themes include various screen sizes. So declaring one ourselves and then just using the default screen sizes from the Tailwind default screens or default theme, sorry. And then after that, we added one more custom element, which is something called primary color, which allows us to use a set like a default color for our site that we can reference anytime we want just by saying primary dash color, and it will know to use this color, which is kind of like a acid green kind of a color. So yeah, essentially that's what we told Tailwind we want to do. I don't know why. I didn't think I made any changes, but okay. Hope I didn't break anything. We just, oh, I just did that, I think. All right, there we go. All right. So that's what we're telling, that's how we're configuring Tailwind. And then we have our input.css, which then generates our output.css. And that will style our site. Hey, Ryan, welcome. Yeah, and Scrimba has some free courses too. Um, yeah, it just depends on how you learn best, right? Some folks learn best by watching somebody else do it. Some folks learn best by watching a course and then doing it that way. So whatever fits your learning style, absolutely. All right, so real quick, before we go to our first break, let's go ahead and just get this running. Now, when we start it, it's not going to have any styles. And actually, I'm going to kill this. I already had it running, but we're gonna run it again, just from scratch. And when we run this, it won't have any styling because we haven't done any styling yet, but we'll still be able to tell that Tailwind is working. And I'll put it to you guys to see if you can tell how that Tailwind is interfacing correctly with our HTML. Oh, you missed this part, Zena? Yeah, so what this is doing is it's essentially looking in the default theme, finding a list of screens, and then using the spread operator. So what this is stored in is an array, right? And then we can use the spread operator to spread that array out and make it fill, create new slots in our object here, one slot for each screen size. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And if you want to know, you might be wondering, okay, that's all well and good, but what are these screen size? What are these screen sizes? Again, we can look in the documentation and we can just say something like default theme screens. Let's see. There we go. And it even tells you exactly how to do that, right? How to set up your own screen sizes and then how to use the default theme screens. So if for some reason you lose this template, the documentation is right there and it's all in the docs. So let's see, I think somewhere I know that it lists out the default screens, but it gives you a bunch of, okay, yeah, here we go. So these are the default screen breakpoints with small, that's probably too small for you to see. There we go. With small being 640, medium 768, large 1024, 1280, and 1536. So these are the defaults, and then you can add more, and it tells you exactly how to do that, which is really awesome. It gives you step-by-step instructions on all this stuff. So yeah, we're only adding one extra one and then just using the rest of the defaults. Yeah. Oh, sorry. And Brandon asked, how do you kill something running on the terminal? Yeah, if you have something running in your terminal, you can usually hit Control C to kill it. And interestingly enough, that Control C command is from the very early days of computers when they still printed out paper like on typewriters. And so Control C matches up with the Unicode for killing a teletype print. So fun little fact for you there. Um, and I also had it running on live server down here, and so I killed it there as well. But we'll start it back up. So how can I tell? How can I know how to how I should tell Tailwind to generate my CSS? Or how do I know what scripts I can run in general? If I open a repo from somebody else, so like you've downloaded my repo, right? How do I know what commands I can run in the terminal with this particular repo? What's the best way for me to tell that? If there's no README, README is the best, but what's the second best? Yeah, dev limiter says, yep, you look at, yep, scripts in the package.json. So let's look in the package.json and see what scripts we have. So I'll make this bigger again. Aha, look at that. So we have our default test script, of course. That's auto-generated. That's always going to be there. However, we have a second script here called CSS. Now, this script is custom. You could call it whatever you want. I've seen some people call it build or, you know, build CSS or something. I don't know. But this one, we've just called it CSS. And we can see it's running a fairly long command here, right? Excuse me. It's running a fairly long command, but we should be able to break it down. So npx tailwind css -I, and actually I think we've already done, oh no, wait, no, this, okay, never mind. Sorry, I forgot. Had to get my brain, had to get my head on right. All right. So npx tailwind css and then -I and a file path and -O and then another file path and then --watch. Okay, so what we see here is that it's essentially taking our input CSS, which is where we basically told Tailwind what to do, right? Here's the Tailwind components that we want. Here's a little bit of override CSS. Take that in, and then what Tailwind does is it scans. It scans our entire directory here, searching within the folder paths that we specified in our config file. It says, all right, look in these places. So I've done some Tailwind in there. Please look there. And then it outputs that CSS file in the directory we specified, which in this case was public CSS, and output.css. Okay. So input, output, and then this last command here is --watch. And what this does is it essentially watches for changes, which is pretty cool. So as we're styling our, so think about past projects that you've done just using like regular CSS. You might be using, say, like NodeMon or something like that. And if you make changes to the CSS itself, or like your HTML, and you save it, or I guess just really to the HTML. Sorry, just to the CSS. If you make those changes, you might not see the changes depending on what your settings that you're using until you actually reload the page yourself, right? So you got to click reload to see your style changes. What's nice about this is that it's watching for style changes, and so when we do our styling later on, we'll see that our page will automatically update every single change we make, right? We'll see that these changes get automatically triggered as we go. And so we can see if a choice we made is a good one, if our styling looks good, if it looks bad. We can our Tailwind is going to be watching for these changes and updating accordingly. And we're going to be using live server, the VS Code live server extension for this. And so we are going to take a break, but if you don't already have the live server extension in VS Code, I would highly suggest that you install it over the break. It doesn't take long. It's just a default extension in VS Code. So you can just go to extensions and look for, well, it's right here, live server. You just search for it and you would install it because that's what we're going to be using for this when we're styling our project. Between that and the dash dash watch command, that will allow us to see our style changes in real time and have it all refreshed right there in the browser and look really great. All right. And Mar Friends asks, isn't it a better path to learn classic CSS first and then hopping on the libraries? Yes. And I think you probably just joined us, but we did actually really harp on that earlier. That I even showed a meme. I even showed a meme about that. And yes, it is better. You should learn classic CSS first. You should know what these words mean. The basic CSS terms, because that's what you'll be using in Tailwind, right? It's just a different way to apply it. Yeah. And so, yes, you should know how to do basic CSS first and then use Tailwind as a way to help you do it faster, right? And a lot of us in this stream chat do know basic CSS already. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. But yes, you should learn basic CSS first. And Rascal has given it, if you don't already have Live Server installed for VS Code, Rascal has given the specific name of the extension. And yes, it's by it's Live Server by Ritwick Day. And I would highly recommend you install it. We're all still using floats for everything. No, that's okay, Mar friends. You're fine. Yeah, if you know the box model, it's basically just knowing the words and like what like margins and padding and what these things mean and having an idea of how to use them. I don't want to create a barrier to entry here. Just cautioning you that you should learn that first, which you have, and then and then you can use additional tools to help you along. So, all right, let's just run this real quick just to make sure that it works. And so if you pulled down the repo, you're going to have to do your usual npm install. I've already done that. This is, I'm using a running version here. So I've already done npm install. But if you pulled down the repo, you should do npm install, which will install Tailwind. So you'll need to make sure that, Tailwind gets installed. And then we can use the built-in script and run that script in order to generate our CSS. All right. So what do we run? So once you've done npm install, what do we run? We just run npm run CSS, right? Because that's how we run any script. We say npm run whatever. All right, so I'm going to do that. We'll see what happens. Now for you, if you're running it for the first time, you'll suddenly see that, actually I may have already had it. I may have accidentally uploaded output CSS in my GitHub repo, but you'll see this output CSS will get regenerated. So run that. All right, and we see it ran that script, npx tailwind. Now, as I start, and we can see it, it says rebuilding, and as we start adding classes, see, no utility classes were detected in the source file. I want to make sure that that's actually working. Hang on. This is unexpected. Let me just add a class real quick and make sure that it's actually building the way it should. Let's see. Let's do. Just check this. We'll do background. I want to see if I actually add something here in my HTML, if that goes away. Oh, yeah, it's fine. Okay, it's just because I removed all the classes from the HTML. All right. Yeah, it's because we haven't used any classes in the HTML yet, so it's like, oh no, you haven't done anything. We're like, yeah, okay. Okay. So if I now open this, if I now run this in my live server, so all I did there was just start my live server. We can see that there's really not much going on here, right? Because like I said, in our HTML, we haven't applied any Tailwind classes yet. That's what we're going to be doing after the break. Okay? So you should see something like this. Now, how can I tell? What is a way that I can tell that indeed Tailwind is working, that Tailwind is present? What's just by looking at this? By looking at this HTML, how can I tell that Tailwind is there even though we haven't used any components yet? What's a way that I can tell that? Just by looking. Mm. Yeah, we got a couple good answers here. Anybody else? Any ideas? Yeah, all great answers. All great answers. Yeah, so we're seeing that it's using some of our default stuff that we talked about, right? We said earlier that if something has an active tag, so for example, we're on the home link right now. If something is active, it should turn light gray. So this link is active. It's light gray. And we see down here that we also see that as Jazzy Pants mentioned, it did a CSS reset. Now, for those of you who might not know what CSS reset is, essentially what that is when something gets rid of all the default CSS, or sorry, all the default HTML behavior that's like built into a browser. It gets rid of all that behavior and gives you a clean slate so you can start over doing whatever the heck you want. And so we can see here it changed all of the text to sans serif. It let it made everything left aligned, and it's set some default margins here. It's gotten rid of there's no left margin or anything, so it's done some stuff, right, despite us not really telling it to do much at all. So we can see that there are some effects of just having Tailwind present. And so if you're trying to get Tailwind working with a project, this is an easy way that you can tell, yes, Tailwind is here, it's done a CSS reset for me. Now I just need to start styling. All right. My friend says, this is what I'm aiming for, but Tailwind is a good thing for smaller projects, what I've heard from most of the front end devs. I wouldn't, it's fine to take other people's opinions into consideration when you're looking at different tools. But I would suggest, trying things on your own, right? Try things on your own, see if they work for you. If they work for you, then who cares what anybody else says? If they don't work for you, then find something else that works better. So, yeah, obviously you can take other people's feedback, but don't limit yourself by what other people say you should or shouldn't, be using. Just try it, see if it works, right? Might work for your project. All right. So let's go ahead and take a break. We've got our CSS running now. Does everybody's CSS look like this? Or sorry, everybody's HTML look like this now that you have it running? Ryan Hawkins, that was very strategic. Ryan just redeemed a foster kitten cam. All right. Okay. Capitalizing on the break. Yeah. So, yes, I can do that. I think you all have done a good job so far following along. Madeline says, I was saying yes to kitten cam, but your CSS styling is also working. That's good. So, yeah, we can do a kitten cam. What that means for those of you who might be new is that I foster kittens for the Humane Society. I currently have 3. And if you redeem a kitten cam, that means I bring one of the kittens and I show them on camera. So we'll get to see one today. Thank you, Ryan, for that. And so when we come back from the break, I will have a kitten, and then we will get to our styling. Thank you for the follow, Yo Soy Wonko. I imagine the follow was probably mostly kitten related, which I am perfectly okay with. All right, 5 minutes on the clock. We're going to take a break for our health and well-being, and for me to get a kitten ready. And yeah, please get up, take a break, do whatever you got to do, use the restroom, and then when we come back, we will get to actually styling this so it looks pretty and nice, and like the example that we showed earlier. All right, let's do this. 5 minutes timer. that big, reset it for you. Get started. If you think of any questions during the break, feel free to ask them, and I will look at the chat when I come back before we dive back in. So if you think of any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer. All right. I'll see you back here in 5. All right, folks, we got about a minute left in the break. So come on back, and I've got a little friend who wants to say hello to you. So I hope you're looking forward to that. Come on back when you're ready. All right, I have stopped the timer, and I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen. So you can say hello to. Oh, gotta turn my camera back on too. Hang on. There we go. There's a little friend. I took my jacket off so she wouldn't claw the crap out of it. But yes, we've got our little friend here. This is leche, which means milk in Spanish. She was named, so chat gave her a name. Where are you going, darling? Come on. Ah, ouch. Okay, sharp claws. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Turn around, darling. Turn around. Say hello to the camera, sweets. There we go. No worries, D5. Have a good one. I'm gonna wrangle kittens here. Yes, she's one of three. They're all little torty, so they all have this same coat pattern. Yeah, I wish you'd turn around. Sweets, I know. Turn around. Oh, you're okay. It's okay. There we go. That's better. Yeah, so needy. She's super loud. Yeah, she's got really beautiful markings. She's not really showing them to you, but yeah, she's very pretty, very snuggly. Yeah, she loves a snuggle, which is clearly demonstrated here. Um, she loves to, get right up in my neck and, be right there. So that's what she's doing right now. She's definitely has a she's very squeaky. She definitely has a very squeaky little voice. Can you turn around, darling, please? Hey, Gragra. Yes. Thank you for joining us for the kitten cam. There we go. That's better. Yeah. Say hello to the people. She's got a lovely little, spotted tummy right here. There we go. Good little spotted tummy. That's a better view. Yes. Glad you appreciate it, Ryan. Glad your channel points went to good use. Is it a foster? Yes. So I have three foster kittens. I've been fostering for the Humane Society for many years now. And yeah, I exclusively foster kittens, especially kittens that are very young, sometimes with their mothers, sometimes without. So I do care for them. I started out bottle feeding these guys when they were a couple weeks old, and now they're all, big kids, eating independently, doing their own thing, but they are still very adorable. So. Yeah, she's got a nice pudgy tummy now. She can eat on her own. And I don't have to get up every couple hours to feed her anymore. So yes, there's three of them, all sisters with similar markings, but I think she has the boldest markings out of the three. Yeah, these guys are super snuggly. So they aren't always. Sometimes they just want to, claw and bite you and that sort of thing. But no, these three, all three sisters are very snuggly, very cuddly little kiddos. So they're a great bunch. As you can see, they really like snuggling. Yep. She doesn't want to turn around exactly. Yeah. She wants to snuggle up. So, all right. So I hope you enjoyed this kitten cam. Like I say, I do hope to do a foster related stream here very soon with featuring plenty of kittens in kitten appearances. But for now, we should probably get back to the coding. But I do hope you enjoyed the kitten cam. Yeah, the webcam doesn't better feature. All right. So I'm going to mute for a second and go off camera and put her back and bring my dog back in because I have to, put one out and bring one, yeah. They can't be in the same room at the same time. So I'll bring the dog back in and then we'll get back to the coding. So give me just one moment. All right, and we're back, putting the jacket back on because I'm always cold this time of year. Oh. Even when I'm streaming. I'm standing up and moving, and I'm still cold. So, whew. All right. Get my screens back arranged here, and we should be good. All right, and we are back. Got a weird hair. Got a weird poof in my hair. Oh well, it's fine. The dog, am I a joke to you? Yeah, I kick it. Well, I kick him off the couch and I put him in my back sunroom, and but he does get a snack every single time. Every single time I kick him out, he's not allowed to be in here. He gets a snack so he doesn't bark or get anxious. And so yeah, it's a pretty sweet deal for him actually. Dog cam for the win. Yeah, I should have a channel points reward for dog cam. All right. Yeah, my computer does love this weather. It definitely does. All right, so we've got our build running, and so hopefully everybody before the break went ahead and got your build running. Now, if you just joined us, you can still participate. So if you missed the start of the stream, that's fine. You can still participate. I will link to the repo again. This is the repo that we are using. So Latjor, you just joined. That's wonderful. I linked to the repo there in chat. Let me paste it again. This is the repo that we're using. All you need to do is clone it down into VS Code and do npm install, which will install Tailwind for you. And then just run the script npm npm run css, which you can also find in the package.json file. So if you forget that while you're doing the install, just npm run css. It's in package.json, and then that will get this running. Assuming you have live server or some way to show it up in browser, just run it using live server or your particular tool of choice. And then once you get it running in browser, it should look something like this. Do we fork before cloning? If you want your own version of the repo, then I would suggest forking. It just depends on what you want to do with it, right? If you see yourself potentially customizing this more, adding features to it, turning it into a different type of site, then I would suggest forking it first. If you're just here to follow along today, you might just clone it down. It's up to you. That is your choice entirely. If you submit pull requests, and you're welcome to do it. But if you want to make your own thing, I would suggest forking first. All right. So one more time, I will paste the repo one more time. There you go. And now let's go ahead and get started with our styling. I didn't see any additional questions, I think, during the break. Let me just double check that. Yeah. No, I don't see any additional questions. So let's get started with the styling. I think that's visible enough. All right, so let's start out with something simple, and let's kind of just get a feel for how we'll be able to see these changes occurring kind of live while we make them, which is not something we're necessarily used to when we're making styling changes, right? Something we're used to when we um, make like behavior changes, but this is kind of neat to see. So first off, in our body, in the class section of our body, let's go ahead and just say, all right, I want the background of my app to be gray. So we'll just say, all right, background, gray, and then I'm going to set it to a certain shade. I'm going to start it with 300. Let's do that. Background gray 300. All right, save. Oh, hey. Okay, now we have a gray background for our body. That was easy. Nice. But that's a little much. So I'm going to back it off. I'm going to say background gray 150. Save that. There. It's a nice, gentle sort of a gray. Okay. Now, if we recall, let's just look back at the finished template again. If we recall, the finished version actually has like a nice blue nav bar, and we've got our company name over in the left, and then we have our nav bar items over on the right, and they're all very nicely spaced. And I don't know if y'all remember, but like building a nav bar, y'all remember trying to build a nav bar in floats and trying to get everything centered right and like in the right positions? hellish, right? It sucks. Um, but we can do it pretty easily with Flex and Tailwind. So Andrea knows what I'm talking about. Jazzy says I try to forget. Yeah. So this is not terribly difficult to do in Tailwind. Oh yeah, and also too, yes, that's an excellent point. And this is actually something I tried earlier. Yeah, gray gray versus gray grey. Yeah, you can see what it does. So it does work, right? It's still gray, but yeah, there's regional spellings of colors and that sort of things can, I'm sure, trip some folks up. Yep. So yes, in order to make our nav bar work, which is essentially going to contain these four items here, we need to, we're going to go ahead and style the container first, right? So our container is going to be this nav tag, and that nav tag is going to contain um, like all of the text. It's going to contain our kind of our logo. It's going to contain the stuff for our hamburger menu, all the links to all the pages, inside of our hamburger menu, and that's what's going to be in our nav bar. Okay. So inside of our classes here, we're going to add, as somebody mentioned, we're going to use Flexbox. So we can use Flex within Tailwind. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. We can use all these things that we're familiar with from basic CSS, which again is why it's good to know basic CSS, right? We need to know what is Flex, what does Flexbox do for us, and so that's what we're going to use here. We can just, in order to do that, we can just say, all right, Flex, and then we're going to do, we want to flex columns. So um, flex call, we can say that. Flex call. And in order to kind of visualize this a little better, I'm going to go ahead and add a background color to this nav bar so that we can see it better as it changes. So I'm going to say, all right, BG slate 900. All right, save that. Okay, BG slate 900. And let's see, I don't see that changed. Why didn't you change? Oh, there we go. Okay, I wonder, why didn't that update? Hang on. That should be automatically updating. Interesting. Did it update for you guys? You shouldn't have to reload it. I'm not sure why that's doing that. Did you? Yeah. So didn't update on yours. Okay. Had to F5. All right. You shouldn't have to be auto reloading, and I'm not sure why I'm not sure why the watch isn't working, because it was working for me before. Okay. Let me just check this real quick. So it's in my script. Noticed it does and doesn't sometimes. Interesting. Okay. Maybe it works for certain things and not for others. I don't know the specifics yet. Whoa, Acorn! Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream, Acorn. Howdy, Acorn. What were you doing? What were you working on today? Today we are doing an introduction to Tailwind. So yeah, we're learning Tailwind today. What were you working on, Acorn? And Raiders, if you would like to follow along with what we're doing today, I have a starter GitHub repo all set up for you. I have a repo just ready and raring to go for you, and I'm pasting it in chat. I'm going to spam it in chat a few times, so you are welcome to grab that. Do clone it down, fork it, clone it, whatever you want to do. Just get it onto your machine, and do npm install and then npm run css, and that'll get you cooking, and so you can start styling along with us with Tailwind. So super simple to jump in if you would like to. I hope you all had a great stream. Acorn, love to hear what you were working on if you want to share that. Thank you for the follow, Diesel Z. I'm number 2 in software and game dev. Hot dang. All right. Ah, you got your mobile app closer to release and worked on a Twitch clip side project. Ooh, yeah. Check out Acorn if you want to learn more about mobile development and uh, Twitch development as well. That sounds awesome. Very fun. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. All right, let's keep going with this. If it's not going to update automatically, that's okay. We can just reload as you know as we make changes. It's a little slower, but it's all right. We'll live. I'm not sure why that's not working, but that's okay. All right, so we've added our flex, and so we can see that this is right now. This is how our nav bar is kind of designed, but obviously we want it to be at the top of the screen. We want it to, we want all of the elements inside of our nav bar to be arranged really nicely. And so we want it to look good. So another thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to, just so we can better see our text items, I'm going to just scroll down to my div here, just the one just below it, and I'm going to add text dash white so that we change our text color so we can actually see it. Let's save that. Okay. So I guess it is going to make me reload. That's all right. So that changed my text color here. You notice it didn't change for the 2 links down below because those are inside of a list, and so that styling didn't cascade down. But that's okay. We can see our header here, and we can see our home button. And so as we change the layout of our nav bar, we'll see those things move around and get arranged in the right way. All right. So we've have it flex column. We've set our background. Now, for when we have a very small screen, we're going to make sure that all of our items in our nav bar kind of stack on top of each other. So this is where we can kind of set a little bit of that media behavior, like a media query. We can kind of put that into action and change the behavior if we have a very small screen. So on small screens, what I'd like to happen is for our items to flex by row instead. So if I have a small screen, I can just say small sm colon flex row. Okay, perfect. So just changing the flex behavior, flex row. And then I also want to make sure that if my screen is small enough that something wants to wrap to the next line, I can set flex wrap behavior, flex wrap, like that. And for medium screens, I think I want to center these items. So I'm going to say item center, and I think that's the majority of the, of the positioning stuff. Reload that. There we go. So now that I reload that, we can see that the positioning has changed. So things are starting to shift based on what we're applying. Item center, okay. All right. And item center. Okay, so now let's kind of set some padding and margin behavior. Actually, no, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the location of the nav bar on the page. So if I want my nav bar to be at the top of the page and I always want it to stay in place, no matter, I want to be able to scroll down the page and have my nav bar, stay fixed in place. And so I can literally just say, all right, fixed, want you to be fixed. And I want you to be all the way at the top. So I can say top dash 0. Do that again. There we go. Now it's all the way at the top 0. And I also want it to be always on top, so nothing should ever overlap it. So I can just set a Z value for that. Always on top. And this is great and all, but my nav bar should also be full width on the page. That's very easy to do. So in order to do that, all I need to do is say, all right, full width, please. Width full. There we go. And so now my nav bar is in the right place, and it should later on, as I scroll, up and down, it should stay fixed in position and not move. Um, so obviously we still need to figure out, where our icons should go in here, but or where our text should how our text should fit in here. But now our nav bar is in the right position. Chanpo, you might need to actually. So for some reason, this was working for me earlier this morning, where it would automatically, do my rebuilds and display in the browser just like this. Um, but let's see. Live server is too fast. Solution is to tell it to wait longer. Increase. So interesting. My rebuilds though are very quick. My rebuilds are like 12 milliseconds. Um, okay. Increase live server.settings.wait to something like 500 milliseconds. Live server.settings.full reload. Ah, so maybe live server is being weird. Okay, gotcha. But it made it responsive. Okay, all right. Or if you hit save 5 times in a row, okay, that could be done too. All right, so yeah, I'll just change that setting real quick. So Rascal, where is that? So that everybody knows. Where is that? Is that in package lock.json somewhere? Where is that at? Is that in here somewhere? VS Code folder. Oh, okay. Ah, all right. So add that in there. Okay. So in your VS Code folder, you can just change your settings.json, um, and I assume just add it in here in the list. I'll just do the full reload. And then assume it has to be a string like this. Oops, full reload. I guess that must be true then. Like that. Hopefully that's right. We'll see. Should be good. All right, peaches. Cool. Okay. So yeah, if you're having trouble with it not updating, I don't know why it's not doing it. Like I said, it was doing it for me earlier today, but I guess now it doesn't work anymore. So fun stuff. But hey, that's what you run into, right? All right, let's keep editing and let's see if that helps. Schrodinger's setting. Yeah, exactly. Oh, gotta love race conditions. That's how they work, right? Okay, so where were we at? All right, so we were positioning our nav bar. We've got it positioned at the top of the page now. Um, but we can see that in our nav bar, we don't really have any like padding, right? Everything is hitting the edges of our nav bar. So we just want to add a little bit of padding, and that's really easy to do. Um, in order to add padding, we can do there's a few different ways we can do it. So similar to CSS, right? There's different ways we can add padding in CSS. We can specify, you know, left, left padding, right padding, top padding, bottom padding. We can specify padding for the whole thing all at once, or we can specify like left, right, and top, bottom padding. So we can do something similar with Tailwind. What we're going to do here is I want to just add left and right padding simultaneously. So what I can do to do that is I can just say px dash 4. And so what this does is it adds padding on the x-axis. So if you're familiar with math at all, you should know that the x-axis is essentially the horizontal axis, right? The y-axis is the up and down, and the z-axis is the front back, right? And so that's why we did Z20 on this before to make sure it stays on top. Um, Sure. Yeah. All right. Let's see if this works now. Nope. Okay, still not working for me, but I'm glad it's working for you all. All right. That's okay. I'll survive. I can live. All right. So PX4, that created a left and right margin for our nav bar. And yeah, so for some reason I always forget and confuse X versus Y. Yeah, yeah. And so that's good to, it's good to practice this stuff, right? To make sure that you can try to get it in your head. So we've added some padding on the X axis, but let's say for smaller screens, I might want different padding. So again, I can set some media behavior here and I can say, all right, for medium screens, maybe I want slightly larger padding because my screen size is smaller. So um, I can do this. All right, we won't see any difference in behavior there when I reload because I need to I need to change the size in order to see it. But essentially, we're setting a media query here, right? We're setting behavior at a specific screen size. Um, so px-5, and then for large screens, we want to say we'll have a lot of padding for large screens. So we can just be like ps-16. And I believe when I specify just these numbers with no units, I think it's using rem. So if somebody wants to fact check me there, that would be perfectly fine. But I believe it's using rems when you just specify units in general terms like this. So if you recall from your basic CSS, again, this is a good reason to know basic CSS. Um, Rems relate to like our relative text size, and so if we're adjusting text size for smaller screens, we might want our rem portion to be larger so that our padding stays at an appropriate size. Yeah, they're rems. Okay, thank you, Rascal. Yeah. And again, that's right from the documentation. That's not something I had to know or anything like that. I basically just said, all right, if I don't specify units, what units does it use? And I went to the Tailwind documentation and they're like, oh, it uses rems. And I'm like, cool, thank you, documentation. You're awesome. So very easy to find. And with the VS Code extension, okay, so there is a VS Code extension, I'm sure. Tell you exactly how many rem when you hover over the property. Perfect. Yeah, and that's something to note here too. Is that when you specify units this way, essentially what you're doing is you're taking whatever you specify and dividing it by 4. Um, and that's just the way this behaves. So like px-4 is essentially 1 rem, and like px-16 is 4. So yeah, that's why it would be nice to have an extension that would tell you, but you can always just tweak it until you get it looking right. Yeah. And like Rascal said, each unit is 0.25 rem. So, like I said, 16 times 0.25 is 4. Man, who would have thought you would have to do math when you get into when you get into CSS styling? Who said we would have to do math? Come on, man. If you hover on top of the word, it'll show you. Yeah, I don't. I think you might need an extension for that, which I don't have at this current time, but that's not a huge deal. You can always install that later. All right, so we've done that, and then I also want to have a little bit of padding vertically. Um, so for that, let's add some padding vertically. So I can say py again because y is the vertical axis. Py2. Oops, not enter. Save that. And there we go. So now I've got some nice padding on top, nice padding on the bottom, padding on the left, padding on the right. All right. I think I've got everything for this one. Just fun. Oh, and the last one I want to do here is specify the justify for the contents of this nav bar. So if you recall, there's different alignments that we can have, right? We can do left align, we can do right align, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go ahead and do justify. And what this is going to do is it's going to essentially like force space between the items to make them kind of symmetrical in the layout. And I think I've used justify before, just in plain old CSS, but we're going to say justify between. Um, and you can see that put my home and my links all the way over here on the right, and my logo all the way on the left, which is basically what we wanted, right? We want our navbar links over on the right, and we want our kind of our logo over here on the left. And so that forces them to separate and to fill the available space um, until they hit the padding on either side, right? They separate until they fill all the available space and hit the padding on either side, and that forces them in the correct layout. Ah, okay. Brad DLC.vs code Tailwind CSS extension. Okay, I might install that during the next break. Thank you for that, Rascal. Always love a good extension. Alexa, do Tailwind math. Yeah, right? I was told no math. Scam. I know. There's so much math. I got into this to have computers do my math for me. Jeez. Right? All right. I think that's all the styling for this one. And so we can see what this is the advantage the advantage of this is it's allowing us to apply this styling directly to the component that we are working with, right? I'm working with my nav bar. I want to apply the styling directly to my nav bar and immediately see what effect it's having without having to swap between my HTML and my CSS and try to remember how I tag things and adding, ID values to everything to make sure I don't style the wrong thing. And so, yeah, that's a good advantage of this. All right, so we've done our nav here. Yeah, you could condense some of these into an apply if you wanted to. I think while we're learning, the advantage of doing most of this directly in the HTML is so that you can kind of, like I say, work directly with the components that you're working with, right? Once you have a better idea of the components that you're going to be, or the the styles that you might be using over and over and over again, then I would say you could probably bundle it up into an apply and put it in your config and or sorry, in your, not there, in your where's my input, yeah, and put it in your input.css once you have an idea of the things you might be repeating over and over again. Yeah. Okay, so that's our nav bar. Now let's style the contents of the nav bar. Let's style what's in here. So in here, I want to flex these items as well. So I can just say flex, and I also want these items to be justified. So I'm not sure that this is right, if this is necessary, but I'm also going to justify these items. Justify. Okay, that doesn't really change anything, but all right. And then also for when we have a very small screen, I might want a slightly different look. So I'm going to say justify around. And I also want to force gaps between these items. So I want to make sure that as my screen size changes, I always want to make sure that I have a default gap around my text items. So I'm also just going to specify, hey, I want a gap around these things as well. So I can do that by just saying gap x2, which is going to force a x gap, right? A gap on the x axis, so they'll never get too close together. So gap x2, do that. And flex, justify between, justify around, gap x2, text white. Okay, I think that should do most of it. And then also too, I'm going to add item center. I don't remember why I need it, but I'm going to add it. Yeah, so it doesn't really change anything, but that was just what I had before. So some of these things I don't remember if they make a difference or not, but I just know I had them before in my notes, so I'm going to add them. If you're wondering whether something's going to make a difference, you can always take it off and then put it back and try it again. So yeah. All right, that should set our items within our nav bar. Yeah, if we had an image or something different size, we can also make sure that it's going to work, right? We can also make sure that our media queries that we created are going to work as well. So we can see that it is wrapping as we go. Now we haven't really set like the hamburger menu behavior yet, which we're going to do next. We're going to set our hamburger bar so that when things get a certain size, these links will disappear into a hamburger menu, which is what we want at like mobile size, right? but at least things aren't overlapping with each other. They're wrapping appropriately. They're respecting, the items are respecting each other's gaps. And so that seems to be working okay. All right. So this is just our, next we're going to go ahead and just do a little styling on our link here, our logo link. And so all we really want to do there is just make the text a little bit bigger and add a little bit of extra padding there. Yeah, and somebody asked, where are the small and other sizes specified? So the cool thing about Tailwind is that Tailwind has a default theme that we can use. And we can pull bits and pieces out of that default theme without using the whole thing, right? We don't have to use the whole default theme. We can just pull out what we want. And so what we've done there is we've pulled out just the default screen sizes, so we don't have to come up with them ourselves. We're going to use what Tailwind recommends for default screen sizes, and just drop that in to our config, which we did. And that's actually in the docs, which I think Jazzy Pants linked to. They tell you exactly how to do it, which is nice. Yep. Okay, so in our class here, let's change our text size. We're going to make our text we're going to make our text larger by simply saying text to Excel. Nice big text, please. All right, that makes our text bigger. So text to Excel, move it down just a touch, and we're going to make sure it's flexible. I don't know if this is entirely necessary, but flexed and centered. There we go. Okay. You could probably just get by with increasing the text size if you wanted, because I think it's already flexing. So I don't think you need those extra classes. But all right, so that was very easy, right? We don't have to worry about specifying a pixel size for our text or anything like that. We can just say, hey, I want bigger text to Excel, please, and do that. Very simple. All right. Now let's get our hamburger menu working before we take the next break. I think that'll be good. We'll have the nav bar completely done, and have that working. And when we do that, we'll actually be able to test our animations. Then once we get our nav bar working, we should be able to test whether those animations that I showed you earlier, those scripts. We have our navbar script here, which makes the hamburger menu transform from a hamburger to an X, right? It's pretty cool. Once we get the hamburger menu configured, we can test that, make sure it's working, and then style the rest. Okay. For our hamburger animations, yeah, we can that's the cool thing, is that we can. So okay, here's the cool thing, and I'll show you that, you'll see this in a minute, but is that we can make our own animations in scripts, but then use Tailwind to control the duration of those animations, which is what we're going to do. So you can use the default animations that are built into Tailwind, or you can build your own and just use Tailwind to control their duration, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and as far as those breakpoints go, that's a great point. Is that Dev Limiter says the sizes correspond directly to the typical sizes of media devices like iPhones, tablets, etc. So you don't have to think about it, right? You don't have to say, all right, what are common sizes for screens, blah, 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 or use like the Google tools to find screen sizes. You can just be like, all right, whatever Tailwind says, probably fine. I'm going to use that. And be Matt. Yeah, absolutely. Started learning Tailwind the other day, and I just have to say I really love it. Yeah, there's a lot you can do with it, right? Yeah, and we're just scratching the surface on it today. But yep. All right, so let's do our hamburger menu. For our hamburger menu, we don't want that hamburger menu. We don't want that hamburger menu to show up unless we want it to, I guess. we don't we only want it to show up when we want it to show up. What if my monitor is a widescreen? Hey, then you can add a custom screen size, right? We saw that you can add additional screen sizes if you want to, and there's an entire section in the documentation about adding your own custom screen sizes. So that is absolutely something you can do. Okay, so we see that this already has an ID on it. because that's, featured in our script. And also we have this ARIA label here, which I wanted to point out. Does anybody know what an ARIA label is? 3XL here to save the day. Does anybody know what an ARIA label is? Yeah, it's for accessibility. And so I just want to point that out because it's not something that we really have talked about a bunch. Um, but yeah, it's what this does is for screen readers. It labels it specifically as telling the person, "Hey, this is a menu. This is a place you can click." Um, yeah. So think about this as you're building your sites and things. If you want to think about accessibility, you can think about adding some ARIA labels that describe what these elements are in general terms. Yeah. All right. So I just thought I'd point that out. But what I'm going to do here is I want my hamburger menu to be hidden unless we're on the very smallest size of screen. And so you could play around with this as far as when you want it to be hidden. But I'm going to say, all right, for small and larger, um, this it should hide um, my the hamburger menu should hide anytime we get larger than an extra small screen. So small hidden, but you could play with that. When I hover over the hamburger menu, I want my cursor to be a pointer. So it's going to turn into the little hand with the finger, right? Cursor should be a pointer. It should be flexed. Again, I don't know if all the flex tags are going to be necessary, but should be flex call. And again, we're going to want to be justifying it. Justify. And I want to make sure. So what I'm essentially doing here is I'm going to be creating 3 bars. So I'm building out you could use an icon if you wanted, but we're going to build this out. So I'm going to be building 3 white bars that stack on top of each other. So I want there to be a vertical gap between those bars. So what I can do there is I can just say, all right, gap y. So before we use gap x, now I'm going to use gap y of 1. So just put a little vertical space in between the 3 bars that we're about to create. We'll see how that looks in a minute. Now I can build out my 3 bars. And this is so we're going to be creating like a custom object here. I can just say, all right, I want an item with a width of 6 and a height of 1. And I want it to be a bar. And I want it to be white. A bar that's white. And I want it to be rounded on the ends and have those be large rounded items. So bar, a white bar with rounded corners that are large, so essentially it's going to round the whole thing. And remember I mentioned earlier that I can set, if I have an animation, I can set the duration using Tailwind. So that's what we're going to do here. And we'll mess around with this a little bit to see how it works, but duration is going to be, we'll just set it to 500 for now. So do that. Okay. Well, you don't need the Y. Okay. Yeah, we'll test that. Let's build this out and then we'll play around with this a little bit. All right. Boop, boop, boop. Save, reload. Oh, and I need to make it smaller so you can actually see the hamburger. It's working as designed. You can't see the hamburger until I make it small enough. There we go. There's my hamburger. Now, why did the round not work? Oh, I think because I put the bar first. I think what I need to do, yeah. So I put the word bar in front of the rounding word. I think I need to put it over here. So let's do this. Bar should probably be after. Change that. Let's try it on 1, make sure it works, and then I'll move it to the others. Oh, still didn't work. Okay, what did I do? Let me see. Rounded, large, BG white, bar. That's what I have in my notes. Oh, rounded. My bad. Rounded. Thank you. Duh. There, that worked. I don't know if you can see that. Oops. All right. So it should work either way you do it. I just need to get the keyword right. Rounded, rounded, save. All right. There we go. Nice rounded bar. Yay. Yeah, well, and so yes, absolutely. You can use like icons or whatever you want to do for this hamburger. What we're doing is we have a little custom animation, um, which should work now. Look at it. Look at it. Isn't it pretty? Look at it go. That's why we built this out manually because I wanted to show how you can add animations. I wanted to show how you can add animations so okay, this is the cool part. I want to make sure everybody gets this. We have a script to do the animations in a separate file. We have it over here in navbar.js. That's where or wait, no, hang on, sorry. It's in where's it at? It's actually in no, it's in my input. It's no, where is it? Hang on. I'm losing track of where I am. Oh, it's in styles.css. There it is. Sorry. Yes, we added this CSS specifically for styling that does this custom animation, right? Styles.css. Tailwind incorporates that when it does the output. So it incorporates that, it takes it all in, it treats it as part of itself, and so we can control the duration within this class here, even though that's custom animation that we wrote. Yeah. So this sexy thing we can control. Now, let's say I wanted one of the bars to lag a little bit behind the others. I can do that by just increasing the duration. So I can say like, all right, duration 700. And we can see now that top bar is a little slower than the bottom bar. It's hard to tell, but you can control the duration that way. There we go. Now the top bar is visibly slower than the others now. We're controlling the duration of the animation just with a class. Easy peasy, right? But I'm going to make them equal because it looks better that way. All right. What was the question? Sorry, I missed a question. I'm going to use @apply for the div classes. Yeah, you could do that. So what all that @apply does is it just kind of creates like a template. If you have repeated styles that you're using over and over and over again, you can set them up as a custom component uh, in your input CSS. You can just declare them in here. And so that way, if you use that keyword in your HTML for styling, it will apply all those styles at once. So, if I have a button with rounded corners and it's green and it has white text and a drop shadow, I could set it up in my input CSS with a keyword like button one. And then just in my styling, I could just say, all right, button one, and it would auto apply all those styles. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, and Jazzy Pants is linked to the documentation. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that. Okay, so our hamburger menu is working. Now let's just finish up our nav bar and then we'll take a break. Excuse me, I need to scratch my nose. My nose always itches when I stream. I don't know why. It's like a compulsion. Okay. Button one variable, but one. Again, like I said before, those first time chatters always come in hot. I love it. But one. Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. All right. Now let's configure our list items so that they only appear when you click on the hamburger menu in like a drop down format. So let's go ahead and set that up. All right, so for our hamburger, we configured the menu itself. Now let's configure the list with our, it's got 3 items in it right now. We want to configure that so it's hidden behind the hamburger and only appears when we click on it in a drop down. Now, some of this has already been done in our navbar JavaScript, but we still do want to apply some custom styling to this. And actually, I accidentally left a class in there. Um, all right, so for our list itself, um, by default, we want the list to not be showing, right? We only want the list to show once people actually click on the menu. So I want to add a default class here of hidden by default, and then we'll change that status, depending on whether they clicked on the menu. So hidden, and then for small screens, we're going to want to make sure it flexes. I want the text in here to be gray, so I'm going to say text gray 400. Save that. Text gray 400. I want to justify it. Justify so it's on the right side. So justify n should do that. There we go. So by default, it's hidden. You can see when I reloaded there, and that time it actually worked. Okay. So now it's all of a sudden automatically updating. I don't know what's going on, but okay, whatever. Now it's hidden by default. It should have gray text, but we can't see it anymore. Right, exactly. Well, we'll center, and I want a horizontal gap. So we'll say gap dash x dash 7. And again, you can play with all these things, see how it looks with, see how it looks without. And I want a bit of a, so basically I just want to build some space between these items. So I'm going to say, all right, gap x, or sorry, gap y 5, and MT. Now here's a new one. MT. We're going to also add MT5. So based on kind of what we've done so far with abbreviations, does anybody have any guesses on what MT might mean? Any guesses? Or you can always look it up in the documentation if you need to. Yeah, margin top. Exactly. It's a really quick way to set a top margin. So top margin, and then, but on very small screens, we want to get rid of that margin. We don't want there to be any margin. So small screens, we can just say margin top 0. Again, I think my favorite thing about this so far is how easy it is to do, to do media queries, right? So all this stuff is right together. I can change them all at once if I want to. And yeah, I think that's my favorite thing so far about Tailwind. So, okay. I think do that. I did leave one class here. I did leave one thing here. Class of active. If you remember, active class is one of the things that we set as a custom component, right? So any links, when they are active, we want to give them gray text. And so if I just apply this class of active, once we get this working, it should have gray text. And we want this to have gray text because we are currently on the home page. It's an active link, therefore it should be gray. Now we've set up some default links here to other pages that don't currently exist. So we can actually just get rid of those and, have them linked to nowhere. It's better practice. There we go. Change that. Hamburger talk is very inspiring. I'm glad. Honda Civic says, I can't read. Oh, sorry, Honda Civic. All right. Now let's finish up these last few classes here. This really not a lot of styling we need to do here, but I do want to demonstrate how we can also add some context-based behaviors. So we might know from our past CSS education that we can have text behave in a certain way when certain things are happening, right? So for example, if I hover over a link, I would probably expect my pointer to change, right? I would expect my pointer to become the little finger, which we did. We set that earlier in like one of the parents. In one of the parents, we said, hey, for every link, the pointer should become a finger, beep, beep. And we also want, when we hover over a link in our nav bar, I would like the color of that to change. So we can do that pretty easily. We can just say, all right, on hover, Class should be hover. I want to change the text to be, I'm going to change it to be 300. You could leave it at 400 if you want. But yeah, just when you hover over it, hover text gray. All right, save that. Hover text gray, hover text gray. That's all the classes we're going to apply to these. All right, now let's see if the hamburger menu actually works. Nice. Oh, did it not? Okay, let me reload. Why is it not? Hang on. Why is it not applying my? So the drop down menu works now, but it's not showing me my proper colors for my drop down menu items. Interesting. Let's see. Just did I change the color? Text gray 400. Yeah. Oh, did I? Oh. Let me try this. Whoops. Hey, there we go. I spelled gray the British way. It didn't seem to matter before, but it definitely matters now. So, yep, make sure you spell gray right, and then that will actually change your text color. Yeah, and I didn't want to ignore what's going on in chat here. How will this VOD stay up? Yes, the VOD will stay on Twitch for 60 days. And then I will move it to YouTube before it expires. So exclamation point YouTube if you want to link to my YouTube channel. And the CEO of Tailwind said you shouldn't use apply. Yeah, okay. That's very. I'm glad you brought that up. The apply feature in Tailwind only exists to trick people who are put off by long lists of classes. That's interesting. Okay, well, if there's a YouTube video that says why it's not needed, then hey, I'm willing to forego it if there's a better option out there. Yeah, and there are the docs. So the Tailwind docs do list alternatives to apply. If if that's something you want to read about. Yeah, it's right. It is right there in the docs. I do remember seeing that. Christ, typing color with a U every time. You can also, yeah, you can also make a gray alias, so you can bring in const colors and then add gray equals gray with the different spellings. So yes, that's thank you for that, Rascal, because I tend to spell gray with an E, and so yeah, that becomes a problem then. Okay, but our hamburger menu appears to be working as expected with this lovely drop down. So that's good. And we can see that, as I change the size of my screen, the hamburger menu appears and disappears as expected because we set up a media query for that. So, and when I make it bigger, we can see that my queries are working because as I cross the breakpoints here for screen sizes, my padding changes. And then, as I make it even smaller, my hamburger menu appears. So my media queries do appear to be working. Yeah, good stuff. So that's our nav bar, all nice and set up. Hamburger animation is not working. Is it working for other folks? Working? Okay. Burger works. Good. Yeah, all right. So, and yeah, also good catch there. Honda Civic, I spelled gray wrong. Also here too, because that's how I spell it, but there we go. All right. Now, now it works. So yes, either you can do that color, specific color declaration like Rascal mentioned, or you can just spell it with an A, whether you like it or not. I'm sure our British friends are used to taking U's out of color and changing the way they spell things for the sake of American developed coding frameworks. But yeah, or you can do what Rascal mentioned. We are all British on this blessed day. Well, I thought isn't the Gray, isn't that the British spell? Or sorry, isn't that the American spelling? I thought Grey, like Earl Grey, was the British spelling. I just tend to spell it the British way. So I don't know. Either way, it's got to have an A in it. All right. So we've got our nav bar working. Gray is British. Okay, I don't know. Okay, now we got people say so. Okay, we're gonna take a break, and during the break, somebody better do some research and figure out which is the British and which is the American spelling because y'all got me turned around. All right, it is break time. We've got our nav bar working, and I do promise that the rest of this is not as intensive as the nav bar. We should be able to go faster now that we kind of understand the basics of like what we can apply and where and kind of what it does. So we'll speed up a little bit as we go, um, but I think it's going pretty well so far. Beep boop beep. Lovely styling. Gray is more okay. Gray is more frequent in American English, whereas Grey is more common in British English. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, the wrong one was whichever one I'm not using. All right, let's get 5 minutes on the clock. 5 minute timer. I've lost track of where that was. There it is. All right, we'll reset this. Take 5 minutes, go get a drink, go stretch, do whatever. And then when we come back, we will continue with styling the rest of the page. All right, timer starting now. Get up and don't just sit there. Go get up and do something else for a minute and then come back. Okay? Okay. All right, folks, we got about a minute left in the break. So do come back. If you're coming back, get yourself a glass of water, do another stretch, rotate your wrists, rotate your neck, rotate your shoulders. Um, you don't want to get a repetitive strain injury. Y'all are making me hungry talking about hamburgers. Come on. Tea time. Yes, I do have a little bit of tea still left in my mug. It is very cold, but I'm used to drinking it cold. Full snack developing. That's great, Ryan. Y'all are making me hungry, though. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the timer. And let's get right back to it. Lickety split. Okay. So we've got our hamburger menu working very beautifully. Now let's work on the rest of it. So I think that's the end of our hamburger menu. Now we're going to go down into the main part. We're going to go down into the main part of the page. So I can make this a little bigger because we know that our media queries are working as expected. So I'm going to make this bigger again. There we go. So we can see more of it. I think that should still be visible. Oh, my camera needs to be on. Sorry. There we go. We're back. Okay. So let's style. Now we're going to be working on styling our sort of our hero section in the middle, right? There was that sort of big white bar with some big hero splash and text and all that sort of things. So let's go ahead and style that. Make sure I get to the right part in my notes here. 1 second. All right. So for our main content, we're not going to do too much with this. Really, I just want the text to be centered. So I can just say text center. And I want to make sure that it that it squishes itself directly into the center. So I can add some padding there. I might try and see what it does without the padding too. We'll just do that for now. And now for my H1, I basically need to make my H1 bigger again, because if you recall, by default, Tailwind did a CSS reset for us. So if you remember what a CSS reset is it essentially takes away all the default HTML styling that the browser might apply, right? When the browser sees an H1, it's going to be, all right, this needs to be big. It's going to put default margins around it and all that stuff. But if you do a CSS reset, it takes all that away. So now we just need to make it bigger again. So I'm going to say text. We're going to make it even bigger. Go big or go home. Text 3XL. I don't know. Somebody might want to look at how and see how many XLs we can get on the text, because we've done 2XL and now we're doing 3XL. So I'm sure might be able to make it even more American. And now it's auto refreshing. So race condition, hooray! So text 3XL. We've centered it, right? And we've added a bunch of padding. Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's Y padding, so it's vertical padding. So yes, that's right. That's why I need this, because we're padding vertically on the top and bottom. I got my X and Y mixed up. You see why we practice this stuff. So yes, the Y padding is vertical. And Rascal says you can go up to 9XL text. Okay. I got to try it, right? All right, 9XL. Oh! Oh, that's great. That's good stuff. Perfect. Chef's kiss. Oh no. All right, let's take it. Let's take her back down. There we go. Go big or go home. Indeed. It's a beauty. Push it, yeah. All right, that's good. Push it to production. Let's go. But again, if you are doing media queries for, if you're building out your media queries and you have a variety of screen sizes, you might just say like, all right, medium is 3XL, large is 4XL, extra large is 5XL, you know, and you could set different text sizes for every single screen size if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that, but you could. All right, so again, for our H, and I want this to be bold. So for that, I'm just going to say, all right, font bold. Okay, there we go. Font bold, text 3XL. Now, for uh, for medium screens, let's actually no, I am as Fred. The reason I mentioned it is I am going to set some different text sizes. So for medium screens, we're gonna have a slightly different layout. So that's gonna be slightly larger, 4XL. For large screens, we're gonna do. I said I wasn't gonna do it, and then I did it anyway. So forgot I did that. All right, 5XL for large screens, and then I also I like that we I like this is very kind of centered and pushing things away. Um, but I might want the bottom to be slightly shorter. So let's just do, or so have slightly more padding underneath it, right? So it's nice that we have this lovely box around the whole thing, but I feel like this sub um, headline is a little bit too close to the H1, right? Normally H1s have a bit more space around them. And so I do want to add just a titch of padding to the bottom. So in order to do that, I can just say PB for padding bottom, right? And just add a little bit there. There we go. That looks nice, doesn't it? Yeah. Nice. Ghibli says, perfect timing. I just started messing with Tailwind. That's awesome. Yeah, we've got some new folks here on the stream. So let me just, I'm going to link to the repo again here. So I built you a starting repo. So you don't have to start from scratch. I built you a starter repo. And I will share it here in chat. Spam it one more time. So feel free to jump on in if you want to. And that'll help you get Tailwind up and running very quickly. You just need to do npm install to install the dependency for Tailwind, and then do npm run CSS to build your CSS, and then you can start playing with it. Gamer went, hey, I wouldn't question extra. If you're getting extra channel points, I wouldn't question it. How would you add a background picture? That's a great question. Let's figure it out, shall we? So we can go over to the documentation here, and let's just look for background image. There we go. Let's look at that. All right, so this is gradients, themes. Okay, they didn't give me quite what oh wait, utilities for controlling. Oh, here we go. Background. Okay, so it is giving us, we can just say background image and then whatever. So kind of like like you would in CSS, you can just do like background image and then I assume add a URL. Background image. Background image. I wonder if we say like URL or something. Whoops. Yeah, you add, okay, so you add the URL to the Tailwind config. Okay, good. Let's, I want to see if I can find it in the docs though. Background image URL, basic usage, maybe? I'm sure it's in the docs and I just want to see. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So that's kind of behind my head. Let me move this over. All right, here it is. So as folks have said, you would add it to your config.js for Tailwind, Tailwind config.js, which is this file right over here. And under extend, you would just add your URL in here and give it a name, and then you can apply it from there. Or if you're using a one-off, they also show you how to just drop it in line as well. So yeah, if you want to drop it in line, you can. You can just say background dash URL and then whatever your URL is. So you can do that as well. You have options. Nice. Yeah, it's very easy, right? And they spell it out so well. They give you examples and they spell it out. It's all very nice. Yep. That's why I like the docs. Okay. Let's keep on styling. Too easy indeed, Orem. Yep. All right. So we just did, let me just pick up where we were. Okay, so we just did the H1. let's go ahead and do the H2. Where is the H2? Let's see. Oh, wait, this a Tailwind CSS oh, yeah, sorry. The next one is a paragraph tag. I lost my place there. All right. So in this here, I just want to do, I'm going to make it green, text green. We'll start out with it being green, 600. Okay, now it's green. Easy peasy. I can just say, all right, text green. Here's the tint of green that I want. And I'm going to give it a slight margin just to kind of push the line below it down a little bit. MB3 margin. There we go. Lovely. Or I could just say, if you recall earlier, we declared a primary color, right? We said we wanted a specific theme color for our project. And so we set up that theme color in our config. We said primary color should be this specific hex code. And so I could just say primary color instead of that primary color. Oh, or not. I thought that's all I needed to do. Oh, text primary color. Sorry. There we go. That's very bright though. That might be a little bit too bright, but just to demonstrate how that works, you can do text primary color and have it reflect whatever primary color you set. Second try indeed. Yeah. Text primary color, that's all you need to do in order to set it. And like I said before, this could be really useful if you have a client that has a specific brand book, right? They have a certain set of colors that they want you to use and only those colors, and they don't allow other colors. And so all you would need to do is just set up in your config, primary color, secondary color 1, secondary color 2, et cetera, so you'll never get it wrong. Yeah, and Jazzy Pants says they had to import colors for their client's site, and it was super easy. Yeah, because you can just set them up in your config. Yep, and your client might already have a config like with the list of those colors already declared for you, and you just drop it in. That could be what you get as well. Okay, so that's it for the paragraph. And then just for the class, I just want to set the text color, and we're just going to make it gray. Text. Gray. I'm going to spell gray correct this time. Make it 600 for funsies. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so the question was, if you add the primary color with a hex code, can you still access all the shades like primary color 900? I don't know. Let's try it. Might as well. Text primary color. All right, we'll try 900. See if that does anything. Okay, so I don't think it recognizes that because it just reset it to black. But I can try, like 100 or something. Or let's do 300. Yeah, no, it doesn't recognize that. So if you wanted to control the shade in that way, or I think you would have to just do like green, gray, whatever. Yeah, it would be a cool feature, but no. Boo. Okay. Well, I'm still glad we tried it though, right? It's what I like about this also is it makes it really easy to play around, right? You don't have to skip back and forth between your CSS file and your HTML and worry about what you're changing, is because I know that I'm in my H1, and so if I change something here, all I'm going to change is my H1, so I don't have to fear breaking something, right? All right, I think that's it for the hero section. That's all we need there. Okay. Now let's move on to the footer. All right, so for the footer, my background, I want it to be the same background that I used for my navbar, so I'm just going to grab that. For my navbar, I used background slate 900. I'll grab that. I want it to be the same color for consistency's sake. Footer, there we go. Okay, perfect. And then I want to add some, obviously this is going to take a lot of padding, or so a lot of formatting. So another thing I want to do here is I want to set my text to white so we can see it. Text white. Okay, now we'll get to see the text as it moves around as we make changes. So slate, white text. Oh, nice. And Rassel said there's a website. Of course, there is. There is a website that will generate shades for you. So you give it the color, choose which shade it is, and it'll generate all the others, which you can paste into the config. Very nice. Yeah, that's rad. Should be noted that you can add custom color classes in your Tailwind config. Yes, yes, we can. Yep. And we did. So we added a custom primary color. So we wanted to set a specific color that would be like the main color for our site. And so we did. We set that as primary color um, with the hex code. And now we can just grab that color whenever we want to. Yeah. Thank you for all. But that's great. It's great to review this stuff and to share all the resources and knowledge that we've all obtained in our journey so far. All right. So we've got our hero section done. Now let's go ahead and we're working on styling the footer. So we're going to do, similar things that we've seen before. Let's go ahead and add some padding, PB3, and I want to add some padding up top, PT10. There we go. Nice. PT10, and then on large screens, I want to maybe have a little bit more padding to make it look a little look a little roomier. So a PT for large screens, we'll just do padding of 20, and I think that's all for the footer container. Because for each of these items inside of here, we're going to want to have like some custom margins and padding on those. Because these are all the items in the footer are going to kind of flex as we change screen size. So we're going to want to kind of style each of these individually. 20 seconds of reflection. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to, even if we've already answered a question earlier in stream, it's fine to ask it again, right? Because that brings us back to spaced repetition. It helps us recall what we've already learned rather than just glossing over it and forgetting it immediately. So I think it's good to re-ask questions sometimes, and which is why I don't mind answering. Yeah. Okay. So we've done the overall styling of the container. Now let's style the inner class here. So we want each of the items inside of here to flex, wrap. We want to justify them. So as they move around, we want to make sure that they are justified all around each item. We want to make sure that items have a default gap between them. So gap Y16 and gap X7. And again, you can mess with all these values as you need to. And we want to have a margin bottom of 16. So this is just kind of setting default values for all the items in here. You can see as soon as I do that, it's a little hard to see, I apologize. As soon as we do that, our items immediately kind of flex, right? It's still not quite right. They're not the place where we want them to be, but they're now flexing to have more space between them, right? They're adjusting themselves to have more space between them. So that's good. We want them to be apart from each other. Okay. Now inside of our little about section here, which is this one right here, for this particular section, I want the text to be centered. So I can just say text center. That's nice. Text is centered. And let's see, what else do I want? I want a bit of a margin on the x-axis and a bit of a margin on the bottom just for this particular element. There we go. Okay, and then for my little subheader here, I want to do something a little different with this. So the original template for this was by someone called Template Raven. And I want to kind of call them out a little bit, like in a good way, be like, thank you for this. So you can see here that in my HTML, I have the whole thing inside of an H2, but then I have the word Raven inside a separate span because I think it looks nice. And so I'm going to set the whole H2 to have font bold, 2XL text, a margin bottom of 3, and a little bit of a wider kerning. So if you know anything about typography, you might know what kerning is. Um, that's just like space between, like in within the text itself. It's the spacing. I think it's tracking the spacing between the letters or the words. Because kerning would be the spaces between the letters, but I can't remember if it's a direct correlation to kerning or not. Is it letter spacing? Okay, so then kerning. Um, there we go. And so that just makes the text bold and makes the letters a little bit farther apart from each other, so that it really stands out. And so I also want to add a little splash of color to this person's name here. So in order to do that, I can just style this one span with the primary color. So we're going to do text, primary color. Hey, that looks nice. Yeah. So the individual inner span has its own color, um, which kind of calls that out in a cool way. Kerning, the arch nemesis of leading or tracking. Yeah, it looks good. NB Matt, excuse me. NB Matt asks, how would you mimic the effect of Bootstrap's container class to have everything line up vertically? Well, I imagine you could put everything in one container, um, and then you could set the flex to be what would it be? Would it be row? Flex row or flex column. I think we'll see that on this template for the smallest size. I think it will stack vertically. So yeah, it would be flex call. That's what I thought it would be. Yeah, it would be flex call. Or you could use grid. Yeah, depending on whether you're using flex or grid. Um, yeah, I would use flexbox because that's what I'm more familiar with, but you could use grid if you wanted. And then you do flex call, and you know set limits on the you could set limits on the container width, like set a max width on the container, and then force it to flex call for each thing you put inside of it. Yeah, that's a way and that's the same way you would do it in default CSS as well. So again, Tailwind isn't really necessarily like breaking the rules of CSS. It's just teaching you to apply them in a little bit of a slicker way, right? Okay, so this component looks pretty good, I think. Let me just check and make sure that oh, yeah, and Jazzy Pants says they also have a container class. Very nice. So just like with Bootstrap, or similar to Bootstrap then? Container class to match your current element to the current breakpoint. Uh-huh. Very cool. Nice. So it sizes. So make sure I understand this correctly, Jazzy Pants, and we can look it up as well. But oh yeah, thank you for the link to the docs. Yes. Um, so if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like it sizes your container in proportion to the current breakpoint. Let's just look at that real quick. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the container class sets the max width of an element to match the min width of the current breakpoint. And then inside of there, you could just do flex call and force it to flex vertically. Yeah, okay, nice. Good stuff. Today I learned, indeed. It's always good to learn stuff. That's why I like streaming, because y'all teach me stuff. Okay, so we've got this component looking pretty good. Let me just make sure, let me check my notes and make sure I got everything that I wanted to put on here. I want to format this paragraph text a little bit here. Just add a titch of padding. PT1. There. Just move it down just a teensy little bit. Again, not necessary, just a little styling thing. All right. Tracking. Got all that. Okay, I think we're good there. All right. And for now, the next component here is going to be our icon list. And so what we want this to be is kind of like if you were like if you had created like an about section on your site, if you had created like an about section, you would probably have a little bit like about you or about the company, and then you would have links to like social media, like Twitter, YouTube, whatever. And so you'd want to kind of call like have an icon list that people could click on, and then you'd want to kind of call those items out, um, make them fairly big and bold, spread apart, and hopefully probably the primary color. Um, to make them distinguishable and make people want to click on them. So that's kind of what we're going to do here. We're going to take each of these items and format them so that they're bold and stand out. All right. So again, I'm going to set text primary color for each of these. And I also want them to hover. Like so on hover, I want them to change, right? I want them, so when you hover over them, I want them to change. And we can do various things with hover. Um, we saw earlier how we can change color with hover, but what we can also do is we can change opacity. So opacity, if you don't know, opacity refers to how see-through something is. So if it's 100% opaque, then it's solid. But if it's 0% opaque, then it's invisible. So we can, set that somewhere in between. In this case, we can just say like something like opacity 50. There we go. And so now when I hover my mouse over it, it goes 50% opaque. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not actually 100%. I'm not 100% sure that that's a percentage, but yeah, you can change opacity by setting it this way. So we can do like 75. There we go. Yeah, if we want that to be a little gentler. Or we could even do like 10. I think that's got to be a percentage. Yeah, there we go. So we can have it almost disappear when you hover over it too. Probably not best practice, but fun to mess with. Yeah, percentage. Yeah, that's what it looked like. All right. So we can kind of duplicate that for all of these. There we go. That looks nice. And Dan Can's code says there's another syntax for color opacity, which is text primary color and then like a divide sign. So yeah, we can try that. So divide 50. That maybe that's just a straight up division. Either way, it produces the same result, right? Oh, okay. So that didn't work. That didn't work for this. Or is it? Oh. Is it like this? So if I take the 50 off, like that, or sorry, if I take the hover off like that, is it meant to replace hover? Oh no. Okay. So for hover, it does the divide by 50 doesn't seem to work, but I could see how it would work if you were just setting the color. Yeah. Seems to be valid there. Yeah. That's not working on hover, but there we go. Yeah. It's on the color name, not on the opacity. Yeah. So if we want to specifically do hover, it looks like we have to declare it this way. But if you were just setting the base color, then yeah, the divide by 50 does seem to work. Oh, okay. I see what you mean, Dan. Yeah. We could do hover text primary color / 50. In this case, I think it's easier to just say opacity. Aha, and Charming Muffin coming in with the technical explanation. It's because you can't animate an alpha channel. Ah, because the hover is technically an animation, isn't it? Yeah. And alpha channel refers to the opacity of, you have RGB and then alpha. Um, and so, yeah, very nice. So yeah, alpha is the what's, other than specific color channels, alpha is the opacity channel. So, yeah. And the /50 creates an alpha channel to the RGB. Thank you for that, Charming Muffin. I appreciate it. It's good to know. Okay. All right. So we've done all that. Good stuff. I'm feeling like I'm missing some spacing here. I did miss some spacing. Yeah, so I missed my classes on the icon container. So I have these 3 icons in a container, and I want to make them bigger and bolder. And I can do all that at once by doing it at the div. I knew I missed something. All right. So for my div for my icons, again, I'm gonna make sure those flex, and I'm gonna say flex wrap. So for small screens, I want those icons to just wrap, and put a gap between them to make them farther apart. Gap X7. Okay, that's good. So we're getting there. They have a nice gap between them, but because of flex, now they're all left aligned. We lost our center. They're all left aligned now. Um, so let's fix that as well. I want to justify center. Essentially, what that's going to do is it's going to, again, force more space between them, kind of like we did for the nav bar. And then justify center. And then gap Y and 5, gap Y5, and then a little bit of top margin. There we go. That should do it. Yeah, better. Okay. Now, as I change my screen size, yeah. Now things appear to be, now that we've kind of defined the sizing for this particular component, this one right here, it's flexing really nice with everything else. As we increase and decrease our screen size. So nice. No worries, MB Matt. I like teaching because, like I said earlier, I like teaching stuff because then I learn stuff because y'all are so smart. So I just demonstrate the little things I've learned, and then y'all come in with the big knowledge bombs and like add so much more to it. So that's the fun part. Oh, we got to hydrate here. Sorry. Nice. We're forcing space between our icons like the chaperone at a middle school dance. Oh yeah. Gotta love those middle school dances when the social studies teacher would, show up for 2 hours and look bored the entire time. Yeah. Yeah, and I have plenty of other videos on a ton of different topics. Again, if you want to see those, that's I would suggest watching my older stuff on YouTube. Um, and because it's ad free, I could technically monetize my YouTube channel, but I don't, because I want folks to be able to watch my older stuff ad free. So exclamation point YouTube, which Ryan already did. Exclamation point YouTube if you want to link to my YouTube channel, and you can see all sorts of streams on all sorts of topics. We built a lot of fun things over time. Yeah. And also exclamation point GitHub if you want a link to my GitHub, which I mean technically you already should have because you're using my repo, but um, exclamation point GitHub if you want to link to my GitHub where you can pull from a bunch of other templates, and I give you permission to use any of those templates for your own purposes. A lot of them are just kind of skeletons like this, so that you can use them and make cooler things out of them. So I unfortunately I don't have any raffles going on at the moment. I would say that my GitHub is your gift. There you go. Take whatever you want. Latjor, oh, that's an interesting perspective, Latjor. For someone with ADHD and hated CSS, which is why I went into data analytics, this is awesome. Yeah, so I mean, similar vibes. I'm a back end developer by day, and so CSS is a big struggle for me because I just don't think about design on a regular basis. And so being able to have my classes like directly dictate my styles has been really helpful for me just in this short time to be like, oh, okay, so that's what I'm touching, right? Okay, so we've done this particular component, so let's go on to the next one. So next we have our let's see, next is our link groups right here. So this is essentially just, what this is going to be is 2 columns and almost like a table format, 2 headers with multiple links underneath. So this is where you could link to different pages, blogs, whatever you want to link to. So we're going to put that in its own section, which we have. All right, so in this particular section here, we're going to do flex wrap, and have a nice gap there. So gap. So just this is just enforcing the gap around this particular like section, right? So I flexed it. You can't see that, it's behind my head, but I flexed it and I forced the gap, so which kind of forced it into the right location on the page. So and it's still not, you're not gonna be able to see it because of my super responsive flexing that we've got going on here. You're not gonna be able to see it, but this is how it looks right now. Now it's flexing properly. All right, and so for my uh, so we've got my heading, we've got the headings taken care of there. Now, oh, sorry, this is the headings here. Apologies. Yeah, this is the headings here. For specifically for that heading, I want to have a margin on there to kind of force the heading 1 and heading 2 to be apart. So we're going to do margin MX 10. There we go. So what that did is it forced the 2 columns apart. We're forcing the headings away from each other. And for on large screens, we can make that margin a little larger. MX 16. Okay, perfect. And then for my H2, again, I need to apply custom styling for my header text because we did a CSS reset. There's no more custom styles, so we need to reapply some of those. Font bold, text. We'll just have text XL this time. Text XL and MB4. Margin bottom 4. All right. So now, if I move this over, you can see the difference now between my heading 1 and heading 2. Heading 1 has been styled, heading 2 has not. So we've got a nice healthy margin on the bottom, bold text, and a little bit larger text as well. I won't die of boredom typing CSS. Madeline asks a really good question. While we're just chatting, are you going to stick around on Twitter or are you going to migrate to another platform to communicate? I don't know. I've just kind of recently cultivated my following on Twitter. I've got a lot of folks that follow me there. I'm not really planning to move, but we'll see how things go. I might move to Mastodon or a similar platform. I don't know. I need to do a little research. I need to see. I'm kind of hedging my bets to see what the next up and comer is. Right? What's the one that's going to win the race? That's going to, that's going to stomp on the flaming wreckage of Twitter. We'll see. I don't want to jump on the wrong bandwagon. Yeah, and Tailwind helps with specificity, absolutely. So thinking about where those styles are going to be applied. Yep. And Dan says, I've worked with several new developers this year, and utility CSS classes have been a godsend. Nobody has to learn or manage a huge global CSS file. Yeah, that's a great point. And also weird WebKit stuff. They're all evil. Need to build our own Mastodon with blackjack and free coffee. I don't want to deal with maintenance. Building is fun, but maintenance is not. All right. Yeah, I do. I don't really have the option of not using social media because I have to communicate with the folks that come and watch my streams. So, for now, Twitter has been the best way to do that, but there might be a different way in the future. We'll see. Okay. So we did that. We formatted one of our headings. Good start, but we got to do some more. So for our list items themselves, let's go ahead and format those a little bit. They already look pretty good, but we want to make sure that they flex properly. So let's do, make sure they flex. We'll do flex call. Again, I don't know if this is entirely necessary. I haven't really tried it without. Flex call, item start, put a gap in there, vertical gap, align left, text left, and font, make it a little more bold, font semi-bold, and text gray, 400. Ah, that looks nice. Yeah. Again, it's behind my head. I'll show you in a minute. Um, and now for each of the individual list items, we've already pretty much styled them at the UL level, but for each of the individual list items, I think we will want to, I do want to apply that hover ability to them. So let's do hover, and let's just have them be the primary color when we hover them. So text primary color on hover. Boop, boop. All right. So, and I can just copy this to the rest of the list items. That, that, save, make sure that works. Yeah, all right. So when I hover, now they just flash with the primary color. And again, you can do opacity or whatever you want to do here. It's really just playing around with the ability to do this. The styling decisions can be up to you. Doom scrolling is on all platforms now. It absolutely is. Force everyone who watches your stream to sign up for the email list. So, I mean, to be fair, Leon does do that. For those of you in 100 Devs, there is a newsletter. But Leon also reaches out in a variety of other ways, Twitter, Discord, which, so yeah, I do Twitter and Discord, but I haven't subjected you all to a newsletter yet. My pictures, I could put kitten pictures in my newsletter. That is true. 1 million viewers. I hear Leon can reach out with his mind like Professor X. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. All right, so now our hover works. And so now we can essentially do the same thing to header 2. We've done header 1. It all works. So I'm just going to copy these same class settings to header 2. And that should work. Make sure I get this right. So under heading 2, I'm going to do, yeah, that. Get rid of the extra quote. Whoopsie. Class. There. Okay. If I could actually copy and paste, that would help. All right. Got a nice big margin on there. MX. Okay. And then I'm just going to copy the rest of these classes. That. Boop. It's all coming together. There we go. And grab my individual item classes, and we should have it. Keep copying and pasting the wrong thing. There we go. Paste, 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 save. All right, so now we have both headers beautifully formatted, vertically stacking because we got them flexing, and with lovely hover text. Most of us only look at the bottom of newsletters for raffle entries. That's fair. Charming says, just give your newsletter good titles like Be a Rich Man in 6 months. If you like to suffer in CSS and have a mindset that nothing can break you. I've sometimes thought about that as like, it seems so easy for people to just like, not that I would ever do this, but like, there's just so many scams out there, and like there's just like people are always falling for scams and like newsletter scams and crazy stuff, and I'm just like, man, like it's so not fair that people can just make a gajillion dollars just being like, let me teach you how to be rich, just pay me $200, and people are like, yes, I will do that. So yeah, you shouldn't have. So that's why I love 100 Devs so much, and that's why I love educational streaming in general, because you shouldn't have to pay to learn. You should be able to learn stuff for free and learn from others for free. And so that's the main tenet of 100 Devs, which is why I like being a contributor to them. Exclamation point Leon, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, do that in chat. But yeah, people shouldn't have to pay to get knowledge. It should be free. So, and that's what 100 Devs is. It's a free training course that takes you from zero to being a full stack web developer for absolutely free, never having to pay for anything. All of the knowledge is available on YouTube and Twitch. And I am actually I'm a volunteer streamer as a part of 100 Devs. So yeah, free knowledge for everybody all the time. And Charming says, my first React course was also a scam. Oh, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry. Oh, I have a double quote of doom. Yes, thank you for that. Luckily, it still seemed to render okay, but I appreciate you pointing that out. Yes. Oh, you paid okay, yeah, paid €1,000. Yuck. But yeah, check out if you're interested, check out Leon's website, leonnoel.com /100devs, and also check out our Discord. It's extremely active. We got a lot of folks on the Discord. They're happy to answer your questions. We have several thousand people in the Discord at any time, so you should be able to learn whatever you want without paying for it. All right, I'm off my soapbox now, so we can keep going. Hey, Jobs on Twitch, welcome. Good to see you here. I'm a full stack. I'm fine. Oh, good. All right. So we've done this particular heading component. Now, if I let's just real quick. I'm gonna watch it flex. Isn't that it's so nice? It looks so good flexing. Flex, flex, flex. Now that bottom margin there on the hero part is kind of annoying me a little bit. Might need to change that, but it's flexing really nice, left and right. So I think that looks good for this particular component anyway. It's flexing like it belongs in the gym. All right, next we have an interesting one down here. So this next one is actually the newsletter component, or I don't know, newsletter section. And what we have here is a header, some text, and then we have an input box, and then a button. We have a subscribe button, which currently doesn't have any formatting because we did a CSS reset. So email address enter, and then a button. So we get to format all those things and make them look nice. Hamburger flags. All right, let's do it. All right, so again, I'm for the outer container, I'm gonna essentially apply the same styling that I did for the other one to kind of keep it consistent, so they all kind of have consistent spacing, even when they flex. Right, we're gonna have a nice big margin on there, and then a slightly larger margin on even larger screens. So that's just kind of surrounding the entire section. We just want to have that kind of large margin on there to keep it nice and spaced apart. And then for my H2, I'm going to say font bold, text XL like we did for the other one. So very similar. Text XL, and then a margin as well. MB4 looks nice. Very pretty. Okay, and then for my kind of inner text here, I think I'm just going to leave that as is. I'm going to leave that just the default. That looks pretty good. You could format it if you wanted. And then for my form here, since this isn't hooked up to anything, so I'm not setting an action. Like, you could hook this up if you wanted to like hook up to your newsletter, but I'm just going to leave that empty. However, I am going to format it, at least make it look good. Give it a margin top of 5, and then have it flex. There we go. Looks good. Now for my input box, for this one, I want this one to kind of blend with like the rest of the styling that we've done. So background, I'm going to have it be slate, but I don't want it to be super dark. We can do background slate 800. Oops. There we go. Ooh, that looks nice. That looks really nice, little bit of contrast against the background. Background slate, no outline. I don't think it has one right now, so I don't think I need this actually. Outline 0. Give it a little padding on the inside so that the placeholder text floats away from the walls of our input box. So in order to do that, I can add some padding because if we recall, padding is on the inside and margins are on the outside. So if you're having trouble with that, the way that I like to think about padding versus margins is that let's say I was getting ready to move and I'm packing boxes and I am packing something fragile like dishes. I'm going to want something inside the box that stops those dishes from hitting the walls of the box and potentially breaking, right? So, what would I do? I might put in some newspaper as padding, and padding goes inside the box. So, um, padding is inside the box and it stops the contents of the box from hitting the sides. So, that's how I like to think of padding versus margin. I mean, it's that's the definition, right? All right, and then we can also round the edges of the box. And so we're rounding the top left, we're rounding, and I guess I could probably just do rounded, like rounded medium or something like that. Actually, but no, because the way I'm formatting this, I want only the top left and the bottom left to be rounded because I'm kind of make the whole thing into like a giant, like a single shape. So that's actually what I want. I want this. Um, Top left. I think, oh, did that wrong. There we go. All right, rounded top left, rounded bottom left. Those are rounded. It's probably kind of hard to see. Um, Charming says to hear backend devs explain CSS makes me feel warm and cozy. Is it because I have so much trouble? I have so much trouble with it that I over explain. I hope that's a compliment. All right, rounded bottom left, and then I also want this. I also want this box to be wider. So in order to do that, I can just say, all right, full width, please. There we go. That what this does. So when I say, just to pause here real quick, when I say full width, what that does is it makes it the width of the full width, or as far wide as it can go inside of the parent container. So this didn't go all the way across like the whole screen because it's inside of a parent div, right? It's inside of a parent element, and so we're just making it fit the parent element width full. All right. And then for the little blinky thing inside of it, we can even customize the color of that. We can say caret primary color, that. And so when I click in here, yeah, that makes the blinky thing be, look at the blinky thing. The blinky thing is green now. I love that. That's my favorite part. The blinky thing is now the primary color, which is really cool. Caret. So now you also learned a new vocab word. The blinky thing inside the input box is called the caret. The more you know. Yeah, margin can technically be inside, but yeah, just for the basics when you're talking about basic vocab. Yep. Yeah. The divs are being repressed by their parents. Yeah. Yeah, caret color can be changed. Isn't it so cool? I love it so much. All right, blinky caret, cool. We have our placeholder text. That's good. We have our button, our submit button, which is next to it. We've called it a subscribe button. Um, Here, our class can be. I want I want my button to be the primary color, so it stands out. So here we can say BG primary color. Okay, we're getting. Oh, that's behind my head. You can't see it. Sorry. You'll have to try it yourself. I'll move it over in a minute. Padding X2. I want my font to be semi-bold. And I want my text to be dark, so it looks good. We could do gray, but I'm going to do a different color. We'll just do, I want it to be the same color as like the background. So text slate, we'll do 900. You could do 800 or whatever. There we go. So now that should be like the contrasting color here. That should be the contrasting color of the background. So primary color button, slate text. Rainbow blinky things in all my forms from now on. Dan asks, is it still called a cursor in SQL land? I think I remember seeing it in some DB connection thing. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I'll have to research that. Changing the caret color burn on the dopamine. And Charming says the Carrot CSS will not work in all browsers. Interesting. Good to know. All right. All right, so let's finish styling our button. We've got the color right. Now we just need to, I just want to round it. I just want to round the corners so it contrasts the input box. So with the corners, with the input box, we did top left and bottom left. So for the button, we can just do top right and bottom right. Save that. That should look good. There we go. Now we've got a nice solid input box with button, and it looks beautiful next to each other. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Now the last part. So we're nearly done. This is the last part is just our little footer. IE11 Opera Mini and Kai OS don't support carrot color. Okay. So as usual, Internet Explorer fans are out of luck. Not Kai OS. Yeah, I've never heard of it either. But hey, well, that's on them. Yeah, if they can't see the glory of the flashing carrot, I don't know what's wrong with them. All right. So now we have the last thing that we have here on our page. The last thing we haven't formatted is just this little copyright footer down at the very bottom. So let's do that. All right. We'll set full width again. I want to okay, so I want to add a little fancy thing. So as we talked about earlier, we talked a little bit earlier about like background stuff, like setting background images and that kind of thing. But what you can also do is you can also set gradients. And so I think that's the first thing that actually came up when we searched for background stuff. So we can set gradients. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I want to set a gradient. I want to set like a little bar above my footer, which is what we're doing here. We're setting a height 1, width full, and I want to set a background gradient for this bar so it looks really cool. Let's do background gradient, and we can just say what direction we want the gradient to go. So I want it to go from left to right, starting dark or starting with the primary color and then going to a different color. So gradient to right, it's super easy. I don't know if y'all remember doing gradients in pure CSS, but I seem to remember it's a lot harder than this. You have to like set specific like values and stuff. With this one, you can just be like background gradient to right, and and then you define the starting color and the ending color, and you're good to go. And so we can literally say background gradient to right and say from primary color, and then I'm going to say just to green 100, but it could be whatever you want. Hey, to green 100, and there we go. Now we have a lovely gradient. Anyone remember making gradients in Word when they were a kid? Oh yeah, you know when you're a kid and you live for word art, right? You're applying all the crazy word art. Yeah, gradients are really cool. Let me make this. Actually, I'm going to change this to be to green 900. I'm going to make it super bold so we can see it better. There we go. Oh, that looks slick. I like this. Ooh, yeah, I like that better. So it goes from like that super bright primary color and then to a nice deep green over there on the right. Yeah, that's my jam. Yeah, it looks better. Yep. I still see word art most days. Still big in the pub darts community. Fancy. Yeah, surprisingly. So speaking of Internet Explorer, my employer has actually forcibly transitioned away from Internet Explorer here in the past couple months. I'm actually really proud of them. Um, everybody that used to use Internet Explorer has now been forcibly transitioned to Edge. So it's pretty good. I'm actually surprised they did that. Um, all right, so we've styled our little bar. Now let's actually style the footer itself. So For this one, let's go ahead and do text center. I just want it to be centered in the middle. Top margin, uh, bottom margin, and font semi-bold. And yeah, that should be fine. There we go. Looks nice. Now we've got a nice top and bottom margin right and nicely in the center of the page. And I think that's it. Because down here we're just linking to our navbar script. And I think we're done. So let's take a look at this full screen. So this is how it looks on my on the full width of my UHD monitor. But then as we make it smaller, so I want to gradient this a little bit. So as we make it smaller, we can see all of our media queries in action, right? So as I make it smaller, we start to see that flexing, right? Things are flexing. Things are stacking. We'll see some stacking here as we go smaller. There we go. Lovely vertical stacking. And everything seems to be behaving as it should. Wow, UHD. Yeah, I did finally jump up from the 1080 train to the UHD train, because this monitor that I'm using, my main monitor, is actually very large. So having it be just regular HD just wouldn't work. It would be too. I'd be able to see all the pixels. So I can't afford 4K, but I can at least do UHD. Yeah, it's fully responsive. And folks are talking about like accessibility and dyslexia. Yeah, so fonts are a big thing, for folks that may have reading difficulties or difficulties, taking in the written word. And so the more you can have those accessibility options, and set your fonts globally for your site, so that somebody could click a button and it would just switch all the fonts to Comic Sans or whatever accessible font you're using. Yeah, that's a great option to have. Yeah, each letter has its own style. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so somebody asked earlier, will I be pushing this code so that you can mess with it? Yes, I will. So you can start, if you want, you can use the starter repo. So the this one here, Tailwind template no style. You can use this as a jumping off point for your own styling, right? You can add your own HTML files. You can add, have a folder in there. You can add additional pages. And so it should be just ready to go for you. It should be fully configured, ready to go. And you can basically just drop in your own HTML or EJS. Just remember, if you are using something like EJS, you will need to change the file extension that Tailwind is looking for. Right now, Tailwind is only looking for HTML and JavaScript, and so you would just need to change that to be whatever you're using. Yeah, whatever that might be, EJS, or HBS, or what have you. So yeah, this is so this no style version is yours to use. However, if you want to see the styled version, if enough folks want to see that, yes, I can push it up to GitHub as well. That's no problem. But yeah, my hope is that you can kind of take this bare bones version and build your own stuff with it, and then you can always reference the finished version for inspiration if you want to. How come when I view mine in full screen, I see white space underneath the subfooter? Let's look at that. Let's see. Oh yeah. Hmm. So I think what I would need to do there is probably increase the increase the bottom margin at at like at the extra large size. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't look bad with a white space, yeah, but I think to cover that up, you would just need to push the bottom margin on the footer down a little bit at so at the I imagine this is like 2X or XL or 2XL size. Probably just need to push that bottom margin down a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah, and it could be also the traditional height 100% thing. So yeah, that could be it. We can try that. Let's see. So maybe in my I wonder what see what I'm thinking about where I want to put this. We could just I could try it in the footer itself. I'm thinking about it. Uh yeah, maybe down here. So under the footer or sub footer, sorry. Which one? Do like an MB. Just see if that changes. Wait, actually, I don't want to do it, but I want to do it specifically on large screens. So maybe from like large and up, we could do an MB. I don't know what I want this to be. MB, another MB4 here on the container. Oh, sorry, no, that's the bar. Whoops, that's the wrong place. All right, try it here. Oh, I already have a margin bottom on it. For large, maybe make that bottom margin larger. See if that helps. 10. Okay. Let's see if that does anything. Ah, okay, so that helped. Yeah. So I made the margin larger for the bottom margin larger for large screens and up. Um, so just a bit more. It just depends on whether you want to cover that white space or not. Whoops. Oh, that broke it again. Oh, that's because yeah, there's certain default sizes for margins. I don't know them yet, but try 12. Okay, almost there. 14. There we go. There's probably better ways to do that, but that's just the first thing that happened that occurred to me. Sorry, charming muffin. Brute force it, baby. I don't know what LGTM stands for, rascal. Probably shaming me for my brute force fix for this. Looks good to me. We build it while we fly it, indeed. Yes. That's how I do most things. I just bang bits together until they work. Which is why I like Tailwind so much, because it lets me do that, right? You just smash things together until they start working. Ryan says, I'm still building my CSS confidence, but I don't think I'll wait before then to start using Tailwind. Yeah, just go and start, like I said, start smashing things together and see what happens. Oh, thank you, Dan. First try, indeed. Yeah. If it works, it works. Oops. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So great questions. I love the conversation that we had today. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that? I would highly suggest that you check out the Tailwind documentation. Like I said before, it is excellent. And I've seen some bad documentation before, a lot of bad documentation. This is very good documentation. So please check it out. If you go to the homepage, just go to the docs, and you can see like they have pre-built components that you can use. They have templates that you can use. They have a blog. They have showcases where you can see examples of this stuff in action and just build, see cool things that you like and use those things. So absolutely check out their docs. They're really good. Latjor asks, how often do I stream? Um, So I do normally stream twice a week, but it is kind of like a holiday time here in the US. So I think I'm going to cut down to once a week just here on Sundays, at least, for a little while here, just to kind of be able to, because I'm going to be spending time with family and that kind of thing. So um, I will update my Twitch schedule. So you can always go to my channel homepage and click on the schedule tab, and you'll see my schedule, which I do keep current. Um, and you can also follow me on Twitter to see what I'm going to be streaming about beforehand. On Twitter, I always post my stream topic beforehand. So exclamation point Twitter, or you can just at MyAnWolf on Twitter. Um, and so follow me there if you want to see updates on my stream schedule and on my stream topics. And then, like I say, I always keep my Twitch schedule updated as well. So that should give you plenty of info. I think I am going to cut down to once a week just here through the holiday time. But that could change. There could be little one offs here and there if I feel like it. All right, let's see. I'm catching up with chat here. It's going real fast. If smashing is good enough for physicists, it's good enough for me. I agree. Smashing stuff together is how you learn. Think about how little kids learn how things work, right? Like how little kids learn Legos and toys. They just smash them together until it does what they want, and then they do it better the next time. So I always start with smashing. Mayan smash. Curious the next topic you're going to cover. Have you considered doing TypeScript? I might. Yeah, could be. Um, it also depends. I also am keeping an ear open for what Leon is doing next. I am going to be doing a Postgres stream with at some point here in the near future. So expect to see that Postgres SQL. Um, we'll definitely be doing that. But as far as the order of things, I'm not 100% sure. Glad you all enjoyed this. I'm still catching up. Thank you for the follow, Un Barcino. Yeah, and apps, that's a good point there, Ryan. If you want to just play around with stuff, just little code snippets or whatever, yeah, you can use Replit. Um, you can use Replit or CodePen or Glitch. Those can be great sandboxes for playing around with bits of code if you want to. Leak code streams. I have done a leak code stream locating, but I can do more if there's interest in that. I did do a leak code stream a couple weeks ago. GraphQL or Figma. Okay, I don't know that I would be the best choice to stream on Figma, um, but because of my aforementioned aversion to design, but maybe GraphQL. I'm sure there's plenty of other way more talented artists and designers on in the 100 devs community who would be happy to stream on Figma. I think somebody did, and I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was Leah T Codes. I think Leah T Codes may have done a Figma stream. Um, 3JS, GSAP. Okay, we got some ideas here. All right. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions, but I'm happy to answer if anybody else has any questions. Otherwise, we'll kind of think about maybe rating somebody. And I realized, dang it, I never turned on my captions for this stream. I apologize for that. I normally do. I do have captions. It didn't. I don't think it reminded me this time. So I apologize. There's no captions on this particular stream, but I will. I'll turn them on in future. Yeah, or another spinny cube. Yeah, we could do another spinny cube in GraphQL. Maybe it was Melody Dev that did it. Maybe it was Melody Dev that did a Figma stream. It might have been. Yeah. Because they're a designer, aren't they? Dr. Moto says, can you compare Tailwind and Bootstrap and SaaS really quick? I know they're not one to one. Yeah, so I haven't used SaaS, but as far as Tailwind and Bootstrap, so Bootstrap kind of has like a set like of built-in styles, and you can reference those styles. So if I say in Bootstrap, if I say something like button warning, I know that I'm going to get like an orange button, and it's going to have certain behavior, like certain hover behavior. Um, certain outlines and that sort of thing. So it's going to look a specific way. If I say button warning, it's going to look a specific way. Versus with something like Tailwind, where I'm still doing all the styling I would be doing with CSS, really, except I'm just applying it inline in the HTML. And you can customize it. Tailwind is just much more full featured. You can customize a lot of things different ways, and you can also what you're doing with Tailwind is you're actually generating the CSS, like it's there. So versus with Bootstrap where you're just referencing these outside styles, with Tailwind you are still generating the CSS file. Oh, and there's one more thing I wanted to show you. I apologize, thank you for asking about that because it reminded me of something I wanted to show you. So hang on, back up, Buttercup. All right, let me get this pulled back up. All right, so is this my, no, that's my notes. Hang on. No, it is. No, this is right. Okay, this is the right one. Sorry. All right. So last thing I want to show you is, all right, we already looked at the CSS, right? We looked at the CSS that this generates, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It is large. It is long. There is a lot here. So if I'm pushing this CSS to production, I might need it to not be this large just for performance reasons or whatever. So there is a way that I can simplify this and make it cleaner. And so how I can do that is very easy. I can just, in my scripts, I can just add dash dash minify. So in my build script, all I did was add dash dash minify, and we'll see that. Let's watch the effect of what this does. So I'm going to go ahead and save, because when I save, sorry, when I save, it'll regenerate, right? It'll rebuild. Save. Okay. Oh, and I need to make a change, so it'll do that. So let me just, I'll just get rid of a space here. I have an extra space. Get rid of that because I just want it to rebuild my project. So save. All right. I think it rebuilt. And so now if I look at my CSS, oops. Oh, why didn't it do that? Maybe I need to actually make a physical change. All right, let's do this. I'll just take this font semi-bold off of here because I want it to regenerate my CSS file. Okay, there we go. I think it worked this time. No, still didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, I need to restart the, okay, that's right. Because, yeah, I need to rerun the script. Yep, good point. Yeah, so I'm going to kill my server and then rerun it. So I need to run npm. I need to rebuild the whole thing. Yeah. Run npm run CSS. Even my dog is exasperated. Did you hear that groan? He's like, oh, why didn't you just rerun it? All right, npm run CSS. Now we should see it work. I'm going to actually get out of this so it doesn't conflict. All right, npm run CSS. So now it's running the build script again. All right, now it's rebuilt. Okay, should work now. There we go. Hello. That looks different. So look at this. So what it's done is it's quote unquote minified the CSS. So it's made it much smaller, in the space it takes up. And if we look this up in what this does, I need to remind myself exactly what this does. Minify. There we go. So in the optimizing for production section, it tells you about these things. And so it only generates the CSS you are actually using in your project. So it takes out all the chaff, it takes out all the formatting, it essentially makes it production ready. So now that nobody's looking at it anymore, you don't need all that formatting, you don't need all that extra stuff. Um, Only generate what you need. Um, and that's what that minify does. It makes it much smaller. Yeah. And you can also use additional tools to simplify it even more, like CSS Nano, compressing with Brotli. But for us, we're just using this minify flag in the command line and just crunching it down. So that's why we did that. You can change this back though. You can change it back just by doing what we did before and changing the script back. When I push this to GitHub, I'm going to take that minify off of there just because I don't want folks to get confused as to what this, by the CSS looking so different. But npm run CSS. Now I'll build it back. And our CSS should be back to normal. There we go. Yeah. Thank you for the follow, Bamboozled. Yeah. We would like your dog to stream and give us a barking 101 lesson. He's very good at barking. Yes. I'll give you that. He's got a very loud, scary bark, even though he's a poodle. All right. Yeah. So I'm glad I remembered to show you all that. Just again, all you need to do to make your CSS much smaller, once you're done, I would say once you're done working with it and you're ready to deploy the project, just pop that minify flag in there in your script, rebuild the CSS, and make it nice and small. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, and there's a point there. If you're using Tailwind and React, React may just be able to take care of all of that for you without you having to add that minify flag to your script. That's up to you. All righty. Oh, we got a posture. I'm sorry, I missed a posture check earlier. Sorry for that. Yeah. Let me just. Oof. Oh, my neck cracked. Dang. All right. Thank you for redeeming that posture check, Leprechaun, 49 minutes ago. I apologize. I didn't see it. All right, I'm not seeing any additional questions, so why don't we go ahead and see if we can find someone to raid? And after the stream, I will push this finished code to GitHub as well. I'll probably just call it like, what did I call the first one? The first one I called Tailwind template no style. The next one I'm probably just call like Tailwind template style, so you can tell they go together. But yeah, I'll push it after the stream. Thank you for the follow, Aruro and Chosen Son. Thank you. All right, let's find someone to raid. As always, feel free to ask any last questions if you have them. But as always, if you have any suggestions, feel free to throw them out there. Otherwise, I'll just look at my list here and try to pick the person that we haven't raided in the longest. Like to spread the love. Getting that pulled up here real quick. Raid list. Thank you for the follow, the Tito MC. Okay, so as always, we have CM Griffin, who we've rated quite a bit. I don't mind rating them, though. They are very fun. We've got Kotarol Chan, and we've got Team Vash. So any preferences there or additional suggestions for folks that we might want to raid? We like to try to keep it within the software and game dev category if we can, although I'm not opposed to others. Preferably smaller streamers if you can. Coder Girl Chan. Okay, we got a shout out for Coder Girl Chan. They are very fun. Let's see what they're doing today. Ooh, looks like they might be doing some gaming. Looks like maybe a first person shooter of some kind. Perhaps that's a valid suggestion. Okay, but I am happy to raid them. They are always a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know if they're playing a game or making one. Looks like they might be playing, but hey, that's fine, right? They're in the category. We'll find out. Yeah, let's find out. That's fine. We can absolutely find out and say hi to them. All right. Fun hanging out with you all this evening, as always. I hope y'all had a good time. I hope y'all learned a little bit about Tailwind and might feel compelled to pick it up for a future project just to try it out. Feel free to use the template, the starter template that's all hooked up for you. It's got everything you need to try building something of your own. Um, and feel free to use any of my other GitHub projects as well. Like I mentioned before, I probably won't be streaming this Wednesday unless Leon does a stream beforehand and I have something to work off of there. Um, so you might not see me again until next Sunday. Um, but yeah, if you're in the U.S., I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. Um, and I apologize if I'm missing other countries' holidays in there, but America. So yeah, enjoy your Thanksgiving in the U.S. and any other holidays that might be in between. Um, I hope you have a great week, and I hope to see you again soon. All right, raid is starting now, and 10 seconds. All right. Oh, last thing. If you do build something with this Tailwind template, please tag me on Twitter. I love to see what people make. So, and I will share if I do join a different social media platform, I will share what that platform is as soon as I can. All right. And I will see you all again next Sunday. Thanks for stopping by. Had a great time. See ya.